The intention of justice is to see that the guilty people are proven guilty and that the innocent are freed. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are taking a look at this case from a psychological perspective.
Fun. Everybody was having a good time.
Does Brian Albert strike you as the kind of guy who's always having fun? No. And here's a news flash for this judge. Mental health professionals have solutions.
They made an arrest. I got the guy for Danny.
It was like a mix between sadness and anger, because that's the moment for him when he really started to believe that his mother was involved.
The only corresponding records in the other databases are from previous days.
There is a huge psychological component to what was going on here. And according to this group, Brian Albert Jr. gets like the most celebrated birthday hour of anybody ever. Like every 30 seconds, someone's like, "Happy birthday!" John totally seemed like such a cool guy.
John makes me like the booze.
Somebody jumps in as a journalist, draws attention to it in a light that is not good for the prosecution. I mean, and there are serious allegations of corruption in the DA's office and the state police.
Oh my God, it's not like his 21st birthday.
What happened outside was separate from anything that happened inside.
I'm going to go with the seahorse, because certainly I've gotten a lot of love from everybody today, which feels nice.
You are very, very loved, and I can't believe we get to spend your birthday with you. Happy birthday!
Text messages read back as if he's the aggrieved party.
Hold on. Have each of you been called murderers?
Who wants to be the one to give Matt the bad news?
I wanted to prove, or to demonstrate.
I don't know where the dog was. I didn't hear any barking. Her name is Sunny. She was named after Santino Corleone.
To the side, in the side yard.
Say hi, everybody. There's my Johnny. Hello. That's my Johnny.
Sunny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze. You're not really going to deny this, are you?
It's so weird. It's like the Inside Out, upside down. Narnia.
I would get at some point in a timely fashion and then turn it over.
No, if we had it enough, or we had it all, I should say. Kill me.
Not having any observable or detectable electrical activity would be asystole.
Means death. 3 separate tab IDs. The thing he had to encourage her to do was not to testify.
You know, and Julie Albert responds to the text message from John, and she goes, "My biggest fear in life is ending up on Turtle Boy."
Stop it.
Oh, you never seen that? Oh, I got it.
You're not going to like this, though. You're going to disagree with me on
Just say it. I like the
disagreement. Okay.
Yeah, the disagreement.
I'd say the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
People are terrified of him. They're absolutely terrified of him. And how do we know that? We know that from Mega Motion. Just another day for me, right? Which means it was just not an ordinary day for somebody else. Just when you thought you were out, pull you back.
Karen Reed plots. She fabricates a conspiracy.
I am just a person who likes to understand. That's going to increase the likelihood that we're going to take some action.
Here she is.
Gotcha. Okay, so your sister...
My sister Jillian, yes.
It's funny. But then he's got part of his shirt untucked. His back pocket is kind of hanging out.
Testified that. So, testified that. So...
And showing solidarity, you can see them there.
It's about getting justice for John O'Keefe. There clearly is an issue of integrity.
How dare they?
Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yay! This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Beningo. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a sixth-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And welcome, everybody. Yay. It's Wednesday night, 10 p.m. live. I am super, super psyched to be here. And today's been like a news review day for me. I have just been chasing down the news, right? And of course, this Nancy Guthrie story, which is, horrifying, worst nightmare, on the top 5 worst nightmare lists. And I said to myself, it's a news story, and I plan tonight to kind of bring us all up to speed on, the week's events that I think would be important to all of us. We had a Charlie Adelson appeal hearing, which went on for about an hour. And I have to tell you, it was more interesting than I anticipated it would be. So I pulled a few clips from that. Certainly, we had the hearing / motion / I'm not sure what that was for Aidan Carney in the witness intimidation case. And there was, somewhat of a ruling-ish kind of there. Of course, we had yesterday Karen Reed's the O'Keefe versus Reed civil lawyers, like the 40 of them met on Zoom for, I don't know if it was such an interesting call. Maybe, just from a psychological perspective, watching the dynamics. It's like you got all these high paid attorneys and you guys don't know how to deal with evidence, like digital evidence. That's kind of one of the big takeaways. But of course, the first deposition is scheduled in that case. And then in the meantime, and I don't even know how this is possible, right? Because I have been working like nearly every single day of the past year on, John O'Keefe and the 2 Karen Reed trials and the whole thing. And for some reason now, yesterday, this weekend, it's occurring to me, it only took me this long, that John O'Keefe walked into the house, right? And I now am on board completely believing that he walked into the house. And so part of what my intent is tonight is to make it clear why I believe that. And I think many of you probably know that I, up till this point, obviously don't believe he got hit by a car. But my best guess, and I would admit it was a total guess, was that he was going to walk into the house and perhaps got pulled aside by Brian Higgins or whoever doing whatever, right? But in other words, that was the reason why I suspected he did not walk straight through into the family room or into the, foyer. And that is until now, until after completely accidentally going back with the intent of looking at, quote, honest witnesses. And it's funny because, God, it's been 2 years now, almost, of, a year and a half since the first trial, which is when I became aware of this case. And ever since then, I've learned about deception detection and behavioral analysis for deception detection and statement analysis and all of this. And it was only this past weekend where I thought, I should really study these honest witnesses. But it's boring. It's boring. So I was like, it's kind of boring. I don't know if I don't know if anybody wants to see that. I don't want to sit through that. Who cares? But it wound up being like the greatest decision I ever made, because all it takes is like 3 minutes of watching people with no stake in the game. It doesn't matter what the trial is, by the way. It could be any trial, any testimony where the folks that are doing the testifying are just ordinary witnesses, have no agenda. And you see the pattern of how they testify. It is so clear. So we're going to talk about that pattern, because I think, you don't have to be any kind of professional of any kind to see what it looks like when someone is being honest testifying. And then basically anything that's discrepant from that is deception. So, of course, to what degree you're able to discern that and then make sense of what it might mean is another level of assessment. But certainly, anyone with eyes, once you kind of make those bullet points in your mind about what honesty looks like, you don't have to know what it is, but you will know that you are being deceived. It is like as obvious as the day is long. But I think one of the things that we all were doing, and maybe doing incorrectly, if you're only looking all the time at deception, then you start looking more deeply than you need to, right? You're in like the fine analysis, when if I just stayed very global, like I said, anyone with eyes can go, oh, this is just absolutely deceptive, right? So we are going to look at that. And my question to you, and I have to go look at the poll results because I can't actually see them right here. Should we jump right into the very newly released sort of Nancy Guthrie, what I would call the ransom video? It is not actually a ransom video. It is her children speaking to the person who potentially sent the ransom note. So I'm going to take a look at that. And based on your voting, we'll either do that now or we will do that later. But either way, we're going to do it. So don't worry, we are going to take a look at it. And because what I had said from the beginning with the Nancy Guthrie case is, if there is a release of the ransom note or anything that warrants behavioral analysis, then we will, of course, take a closer look at it. And I did pull some very interesting clips from different content creators. Justice Served TV has done a hell of a job bringing on law enforcement, different law enforcement agents to give their just opinion, really, on what to look for, what the feds might be looking for. The feds are now actually, it looks like, taking over this investigation. So very interesting, just hearing it, right? Because obviously, if you're here listening to me, you're probably a true crime person of some type, in some way, shape, or form. And so, of course, it is interesting to right? It's interesting to just hear, like, what does a top level law enforcement agent do when you first get wind of this case? And so we will take a look at all of that. The question is, what are we going to do first? So I am going to check our poll results, and then we'll go from there. And I know folks have questions, and I've been favoriting the questions so I can put a little pin in it. And we will, don't worry, we're going to get to Aiden. One of the things that I loved about Turtle Boy's case this week, Tim Bradle, who, wasn't super prominent during the hearing, said something really nice after the, just in the little press conference, I guess, that happened afterwards. He just so eloquently put how I see this case and what I think this case is really about. And so I pulled that. I'm going to show you all that too very, very shortly. So I'm checking on our poll results, and I will do that. And I will get your opinion as to what we do next, which is exciting. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to do this without like blowing out. You know what, Denise, just text me because if I click on this, it's going to blow back and the sound is going to get all screwed up. So you just let me know what we're doing, and then we will go from there. Okay. So while we wait for that, and then what else we're going to be doing? There's some interesting stuff. It's just crazy. Like, how are we still doing this, guys? How am I still like analyzing this case and seeing things from a different lens? There is such an incredible amount of evidence when it comes to the Karen Read trials. Incredible. Like, there is so much evidence. Apparently, we learned yesterday in the civil hearing that Karen's lawyers sent over to, I guess it was either the Waterfall or C.F. McCarthy's or both, was it 590,000 documents? I think like 550 videos, 590,000 pieces of paper, right? Digital paper, but paper nonetheless. Could you imagine getting 590,000 pieces of paper? A lot of it was not labeled at all, just videos, no date, no label. It's amazing. It's incredible. So I don't know how any of that works from a legal perspective, but I just can only imagine what it must be like to get that much information all at once and to be kind of really excited about jumping in. But at the same time, and this is what I mean about this case, it never stops. It never stops. And I have a lot I want to do tonight. So I'm just waiting to see what it is we are going to be doing first. So let me see. Well, why don't we do it this way? Because I can't actually do the poll without, oh no, I can do it on my phone. Sorry, you guys. I forgot. I can just use my phone. It's much easier. Much, much easier. And you guys won't be able to hear me blow back. Excellent. Okay. So what are we doing? Are we doing this or what are we doing? Okay, do it this way. Let's do it this way. If you want me to just jump right in with because I can't see it for some reason, I can't see the results. So if you want me to start right now with an assessment of the Nancy Guthrie ransom video, which is the 3 children speaking to the person that may have kidnapped her, put a 1 in the chat. Oh, it's 63%. Okay. Got it. Thank you. I couldn't see it. Lucianne 77. Thank you so much. I see it now. Great. So let's get to it. We're going to start with that right now. All right. So a couple of things before we jump into this. Let me just bring you up to speed in case you are not, so that we're all on the same page. There is an uncertainty, apparently, as to whether or not, and this is what those who know more about this, some of the folks like Brian Enton, who's been amazing and amazingly reporting on this case, Ashley Banfield, who's saying that she has sources in the FBI that are relaying information that does seem to have been very, very helpful for all of us. The investigation itself has not been handled well, or at least there's been a lot of criticism of the local Tucson Sheriff's Department that's been handling it. So it has now been taken over by the feds, who have once again put crime scene tape back up around the residence. They are doing grid searches of the area around the house and behind the house. So that is the latest, the most current. Okay. The feds are now moving in, and it appears taking over. However, 2 ransom notes were sent. One initially to TMZ, also to the local Tucson, I think, television station. And there was a lot of uncertainty about whether they were legitimate. Part of the challenge was that they came much later than most do. Most of the time when there's a ransom, they come very quick, because the whole point is, right, and I'll let some of the other investigators who know more about this explain it. But the whole point when there's ransom is that it's a pain in the tush to have a person who's kidnapped, right? It's a lot on you. You have to feed them. You have to care for them. You have to make sure that they're, health, that they stay alive. Otherwise, you have no leverage, right? So the fact that there wasn't a ransom note immediately given was a problem and made the investigators question its legitimacy, from what I understand. Now, this is coming from others who know more about this than I do. I'm just getting this from other journalists and handing it over to you. So that's why I think there has been hesitation to treat this like a kidnapping for ransom. There's been questions about whether or not to proceed that way, and it appears as though they are, because an hour ago or so, we saw this video. So let's take a closer look. These are obviously Nancy Guthrie's children. Here we go. All right. Turning the volume up.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day. Despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief, we are always going to be merely human, just normal human people who need our mom. Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us. Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again. We speak to you every moment, and we pray without ceasing, and we rejoice in advance for the day that we hold you in our arms again. We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you, Mom. We love you.
Okay. Wow. All right. Whoa, huh? Jesus. What do you guys think? Very interesting. Very clearly a ransom targeted video, right? So you can see that there's all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, that's partly why I wanted to play it. It's very, very interesting. Right at the beginning, they're trying to humanize, speak to the human in, whoever may have taken her, assuming that she was kidnapped. You can see that they are proceeding as though that is the case, but that there is some doubt, there's some uncertainty. It appears that that person has not been back in touch, right? So this is an effort to try to, you know, I guess extend an olive branch, if you will, for lack of a better way of saying it. But I would say the first half of that video was entirely intended to, I don't want to say guilt the kidnapper or kidnappers, but to put pressure on them, essentially tug on their humanity to try to create urgency, right? Try to get this situation moving. And they were also clearly coached not to evidence too much emotion. That's why you had the son in the back, almost barely moving. The sister read that very much in a robotic way. I think the other thing that certainly the feds and those who have been speaking based on their own experience, who have worked in federal investigations, believe that Savannah Guthrie may have had something to do with this. Maybe she has a stalker. Maybe she has somebody with a very specific interest in her, and that is the reason why Nancy was targeted. And therefore, she, of course, is the one that's reading the letter, targeted specifically to that person. Letting that person know mom does have a legitimate health condition, letting that person know that she needs her medicine, that this is an urgent situation, trying to, mommy speaking to her mommy the way that, a child would speak to their parents. So you have a lot of all of that going on. I wonder, does anybody else, have you guys noticed anything in particular? Certainly, it's only 60 miles from the Mexican border, so it could be anybody. Could be anything or anyone. There was some speculation, maybe reports, unconfirmed, that the brother-in-law was somebody they were looking at. I can also tell you that, so the more recent kind of news bits that have come out in the last maybe 4 hours, from what I know, there is evidence that this person either knew her personally or had been sort of stalking her for long enough to know where all the cameras were on site, to know the layout of the house to some degree, right? And it's apparently very dark at night, not a crowded neighborhood. It's farther out from the city itself. So, the properties are between 1 and 4 miles each. However, there have been and there are cameras in people's homes that may have caught something. So, there's a lot of ways that investigators are trying to use technology to hunt down who did this. And one very interesting unit showed up at the family home. So the sister lives, I think, about 10 minutes away from mom. And that seems to be like the hub spot where the family is gathering and where the investigators are going to speak to the family. And one of the details that came out this afternoon, a very specialized investigative unit that usually deals with child sex trafficking, where people are using the internet and high level computer hacking, I guess, to track people down. That same unit that normally would be working on pedophile rings around the world is now, I guess, helping out with this investigation. You guys probably know more than I do about the very specifics of that agency, but they, I guess, are now involved. So it looks as though the feds have taken over, that they are, really pulling out all the stops to try to help find this woman. But it also appears as though, I guess, some of the details in the ransom letter described. So obviously the kids have seen it. They brought it to Savannah, I think 2 days ago, from what I understand. And they confirmed, they explained what mom was wearing, and they did explain some of the layout of the house. Now, the problem is that's information that apparently, nobody knows what mom was wearing, number one, so you can't really use that, right? And number two, you know, apparently lots of people know what the house layout is. You know, there could have been pictures that somebody acquired on the internet. So they were really very reluctant to just believe that this was a ransom. However, as you just saw, it appears that that is what they are proceeding as. So very, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, how do you come to, I don't know what people are talking about, but I'm trying to keep up. Sometimes when in the chat you guys are having a conversation, it's super difficult to know who's talking to who. But certainly, I mean, first off, it's just devastating, right? I mean, this poor woman, you know, avid churchgoer, you know, that's how they discovered that she was missing. She just didn't show up to church on Sunday. And as soon as she wasn't there, it flagged off, you know, it set off alarms for everyone. Like there's no way mom wouldn't be there. So, and I think this is the fourth day now, right? 'Cause Sunday would have been Saturday night. Oh, investigators believe that she was abducted at 2 a.m. because that is when her pacemaker disconnected from her Apple Watch, or from her iPhone and Apple Watch, which was charging, I guess, on the nightstand. She does not have her phone with her. Obviously, that was left behind. So a tragic, just horrific situation. And, you know, if she was kidnapped for ransom, could you imagine how desperate the situation is becoming for that person? Because she doesn't have her medicine. She's sick. It looks like she may have been injured. She was taking blood thinners for heart problems. So she's, you know, physically limited in terms of her ability. Her movement is limited. I mean, it's going to get really urgent if there is a kidnapper, situation is going to get urgent quick at day 4, day 5. There was speculation that the son-in-law was a quote person of interest. I have no idea why. Quickly, the investigators put out, after that came out, that detail emerged. They responded by saying that there were no persons of interest, there were no suspects. So that's all we know. We just don't know that much, right? There's a blood trail in the front of the house, but there was also, I guess, I don't know if it's a screen door, but the door at the back of the house was also left wide open. The cameras were destroyed. I guess there was more than one, and that is what made investigators believe that this was not a random act, that it was targeted, because you would have had to have known where the cameras were, and they were destroyed. So for what that's worth. Very, very interesting. I'm looking at you guys. Yeah, I mean, it's intense. Absolutely intense. So Kylie, I see Kylie asking, do we, has anybody asked for money yet? So we don't know. There have been 2 ransom letters, apparently separate, unrelated from what we understand. But again, they're keeping this very close to the vest. And what we learned from different, like Michael Easter was interviewed earlier today on Justice Served. He was asked about this. Well, listen, if there was a ransom, you wouldn't necessarily tell the public. You'd probably keep that close to the vest. Having said that, 2 letters were sent publicly. One was sent to the local Tucson, I think, the paper or television station. The other was sent to TMZ, which is a little odd. And I think because it was TMZ, that was what made investigators a little reluctant to just buy it right away. Like, why would TMZ be the elected news outfit for this? But the investigators did share it with the family. So those outfits decided not to share it with the public for whatever reason. So we don't know what they're asking for. We don't know what the letters have said. We only have gotten sort of third hand that one of those 2 ransom letters that were sent to media outlets did describe what she was wearing and sort of outlined the details of the house. So the one of the reasons why people didn't believe this right away, so one of the reasons why investigators were very reluctant to believe that they were legitimate, right? Because anybody could send a ransom note, right? Any quack could just send, a ransom note to Tucson television station. One of the reasons why they were reluctant to believe it is because the timing was off from what we know. Now, we may not be in the know, right? The initial investigative team might have had information that we never got in the public. So that's important to keep in mind too. And that was a point that Michael Easter made right away. Listen, there might be a lot that we're just not being told. So I will play you. I thought this was really interesting. Yesterday, Justice Serve did an interviewer was profiling this story, and they did an interview with, I think she's like a local police officer or investigator, sheriff, but I'm not sure where from. But she was just so good and had a lot of interesting thoughts about the case. Now, again, this is pure speculation. So what I'm about to show you, we do not know if any of this is true. It was just law enforcement speculating based on their years of knowledge and experience, what could be going on. And I think it is worth taking a look at. So let me pull that up here. All right. Okay, here we go. Okay.
A purported ransom note and the disappearance of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy, contained chilling details from the night she was allegedly abducted, authorities said.
Okay, this was the blood trail that actually Brian Enton found. So it's so weird when investigators do this, right? It's sort of like with, John O'Keefe. How do you leave a crime scene? If you know there's even a speculation of a crime, how do you leave it unattended? Like literally, he as a journalist was just like wandering around the property, walked up to the front steps and like knocked on the door. And when he looked down, he saw that there was, like blood spatter. Now, there were people making very good points about this, particularly when you're older, you're taking blood thinners for different reasons. You might bleed easily. It may not be from a crime being committed. So that's something to keep in mind. But you would think, right? You would think that if there's blood on the front steps of the house that, this is still an active crime scene. It is now. Just that was in the last 2 days. However, I guess this afternoon or / evening, the feds came in and they did once again take back the scene. They brought in dogs. So they have once again decided to make it a crime scene, and it is closed to the public now. Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that. I'm not sure I've ever seen that where it's open and then closed again, but I guess it makes sense given where we are now. So this is the front. This is her front door. And apparently that would have also been a camera. And again, this came from a journalist, Brian Enton. It did not come from an investigator. These were some of the details that I thought, were worth noting that you may or may not have heard. The cameras were smashed. There were more than one, and it appeared as though someone would have to know where they were because they were more than one and smashed. The back door was left open. As I mentioned, the son-in-law was being looked at closely. They were doing a grid search in the back, in the property, not only her backyard, but in the property behind the house. There were also very low-flying helicopters right over the house for several hours throughout the day, I think last night and today. And now, as I mentioned, the family has been meeting with this special computer crimes team who are coming in, and again, which makes sense. Nowadays, right, digital is going to be, where probably most investigators start. So, and we are going to hear more about this Let's hear.
The team that I would have been on would have focused on the cellular footprint, not only the footprint of potential suspects, but we would start a simultaneous investigation. One, to uncover her past, right? All communications, whether they're over her mobile device or computer, any way that she was communicating, apps, traditional SMS, so that we can understand her communication tree. Perhaps she was receiving threats that weren't really dealt with. Maybe she gets threats regularly. So we'd want to vet those things out to identify her call and communications tree and natural comings and goings. Where does she go? And a timeline beyond just what the family said. And not that we wouldn't trust them, but we have to develop our own timeline that would corroborate even family member witness statements.
So what he's talking about here, and and justice served, these guys deserve a tremendous amount of credit, as does Brian Enton, Ashley Banfield. Those guys have been just amazingly on top of this case so far. But they were asking Mike Easter, for those of you that are not familiar with who he is, I'm sure some of you are, because he was the one that the defense wanted to bring into trial number 2 to testify to what a real investigation, police investigation, looks like. The interesting thing about Easter is that he's actually been a law enforcement professional at every level, from like the local town hometown cop up through to the highest level of federal investigations. And he's brought on now as a full-time consultant. So he's, brought on in all kinds of different situations. Some, like we saw with the trial, to consult for, the defense or the prosecutor's office, but often for very special, specific investigative situations, right? So he's called upon to assist. Most of his area of expertise is digital. And so he talked about sort of like 3 different, the way he would approach it. Number 1 would be cellular. That would be number 1, right? So he's going through here how he would be thinking about how to attack who this was, who did this, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Nate Taylor sends $2, says it should have been given to the FBI right away. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of criticism on the way that the local police have handled this case. And, obviously Tucson, it's a small city. This was probably way over their heads very, very fast. And I know that the feds don't have I don't think they can just come in unless you can make the case that it is, right, like multiple state involved, right? Unless somebody's, the criminal is believed to have crossed state lines. They are close to the border, Mexico. But I believe that at this point, they've been invited to come in. And again, that was something that Michael Easter mentioned as well. Absolutely. At CC Headband Cupcake Law Nerd sends $4.99. The ransom asked for money. That's right. Thank you for reminding me of that. That's right. The ransom asked for money in Bitcoin, but I don't think we learned how much they were asking for, but they did give a Bitcoin account number, and they did ask for Bitcoin, and that makes sense, right? I mean, listen, if you were going to commit a ransom, certainly Bitcoin would be the smarter way to do it, you would think. Now, I don't know. I'm not Michael Easter, so I don't know if that is, if that does leave a footprint and what type of footprint it leaves. If you're making Bitcoin exchanges, is that traceable? How is it traceable? How, all of that. But thank you for reminding me of that. That's right. I did know that they were asking for, I think it was the TMZ ransom, I think, that was asked for in Bitcoin. I think. Thank you for saying that. That's very, very helpful. Okay, let's see what else he's got to say here.
Okay. And then simultaneously, we would be looking at, personally, I would then get the victim's daughter, right? She would tend to have the most financial means if a ransom were to come in. So we'd like to know whether or not somebody had been attempting to exploit her previously, any random calls that she may have been receiving. We really just want to understand any potential aspects for that.
So let me also, I just remembered this too before I forget. Interesting. So while Brian Enton is kind of walking around the neighborhood, it looked like he was using his cell phone camera. I don't know. I don't think it was. I think it was just a small, like, handheld camera. But had driven up, was driving by, I guess. And she happened to mention that there were some oddities, some strange happenings in the neighborhood. She was very vague. She did not go into detail. She mentioned that it's not unusual for, different types of salespeople to come around door to door in that neighborhood specifically. But she did allude to some unusual behavior and mentioned that she either had or was going to be going to the police to make that report, which is probably nothing, but seemed worth mentioning.
And then the other investigation is the unidentified subject or subjects, which was likely be more than one here. And that would be, how do we exploit the digital footprint at the residence and places that she was earlier? Because as you guys probably would imagine, and Linda, you said it, they didn't just parachute out of the sky, right? So the probability is then we make the assumption, were they waiting for her at the residence, or had they been following her leading up to that disappearance? And so we'd want to figure those things out, or at least have both options covered. So when you think of the common term geofence or an area search, that would be conducted at the residence to include tower dumps. And then we would also look for key locations that she was static at previously. Like if she was out to dinner at the restaurant, I'd be using an area search and tower dump there to see if anybody that was also at the restaurant followed her home. And if she had any other things that day, maybe even up to 24 hours of a solid static location that we might be able to see people digital footprint having followed them. And then if that's happening, we're also going to do CCTV and surveillance type equipment throughout those routes.
So very interesting. It's interesting that he is assuming that it's more than one person, right? Very interesting that he appears to just have already made the decision, in fact, that this must be a they situation. And I suppose there's some basic logic to that, right? But I'm also wondering if kidnappings aren't typically more than one person, right? Because why else immediately jump to that assumption? In my mind, I would think you want less people involved, right? You do not want to be in a team on something like this. You don't want to. It's like anybody else that has any information outside of you opens the door for you to be discovered, you to be caught. And my God, could you imagine, like, this person must be so mentally unstable to decide that this was a good idea, right? And that also, by the way, has been a big part of all of these conversations. Why was somebody doing this? Don't they realize that, this is, I don't know how else to say it, but it's not a great situation. Every day that goes by, every minute that goes by, it becomes a more just treacherous situation for the family, because as a kidnapper, you start to realize that this is not working out so well, that you have made a decision that is more than you can handle. You now have to take care of a life, right? It's like your responsibility now to take care of a life. And, that's probably in reality much more challenging than it might seem on paper without thinking it all the way through. At Mark Langle 9990 sends $4.99. A ransom note would be a good thing if you think about it, meaning she's still alive. Yeah, I mean, well, the hope is that is what's going on, I think. The problem is that it wasn't, from what we understand, ransom notes are typically given very quickly, like either at the scene or within a few hours after that person is abducted. And apparently, because there was a big gap of time, it's suspicious. I think that was the thinking. But who knows? I mean, who knows? Maybe that person did send out the ransom email very quickly, but that whoever the receiver was didn't get it. I don't know. We don't know. But yes, the hope would be that if this is a ransom, I guess that is something more hopeful, because at least we know why. I think the other way of thinking about it, if it's not for ransom, is like, who the hell would do this? Why would they do it? And it does not bode well, right? In terms of how the family would be thinking about her being alive, right? I mean, it would definitely not bode well. I think I read that one already. Okay, so let me see. At CC007 sends 199. Thank you so much, at CC. All right, let's play this a little bit longer.
The note, sent to a local Arizona news station, contained details about the 84-year-old matriarch's home near Tucson and what she was wearing on the night of her disappearance. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos told CBS News, although he declined to give any specifics.
Right, so the family was shown the notes to try to verify.
Nanos refused to say whether the note was legitimate or if the details it provided matched the crime scene, where drops of blood visible in scene footage from News Nation, as well as signs of forced entry, were found. It was not clear whose blood it was. It isn't clear if the purported note sent to the CBS affiliate in Arizona, which chose not to report the exact contents of it, is the same that was sent to TMZ on February 3rd. The note to TMZ provided a deadline for the ransom payment in Bitcoin for her safe return and implied something sinister would befall Nancy if the towering sum wasn't paid. In an emotional interview on February 3rd, the sheriff became choked up when asked if the operation was still a search and rescue.
Do you believe you are still looking for Nancy Guthrie alive at this point?
We're just not going to give up hope. We hope she's out there somewhere.
So you still believe this is an active rescue mission at this point?
We hope so.
That was a no.
According to authorities, a relative made a 911 call around noon on February 1st to report Nancy Guthrie was missing after she failed to show up for a church service. She was last seen by Savannah's brother-in-law, Tommaso, after he dropped Nancy off at her home in Catalina Foothills, north of Tucson, at around 9:30 p.m. on January 31st after a dinner, authorities said. On February 3rd, FBI agents were spotted at Tommaso and Savannah Guthrie's sister Annie's home in Arizona as the
I'm assuming this is the woman that we saw in the video, right? That appears to be the same woman.
Search for their missing mother continues. Savannah was also believed to have been there. The elder Guthrie was not known to have illnesses such as dementia or Alzheimer's and was of good sound mind. However, she was described as being in not of good physical health. She cannot walk more than 50 yards on her own and is reliant on life-saving medication, a lack of which for 24 hours could prove fatal, making the hunt a race against time. On Monday, February 2nd, authorities confirmed the case was officially being investigated as a crime.
It is a crime scene. We know that. She is very limited in her mobility, right? We know she didn't just walk out of there. That we know. There are other things at the scene that indicate there was she did not leave on her own. We know that.
Her daughter, Today anchor Savannah Guthrie, skipped the February 2nd Monday episode of the NBC Morning Talk Show. However, she shared a statement that was aired regarding her mom being missing.
On behalf of our family, I want to thank everyone for the thoughts, prayers, and messages of support. Right now, our focus remains on the safe return of our dear mom.
Nancy has made various guest appearances on Today over the years since Savannah joined the show in 2011.
She loves us, her family, fiercely, and her selflessness and sacrifice for us, her steadfastness and her unmovable confidence is the reason any of us grew up to do anything.
Talk about Lindbergh.
Okay, this is the interview I wanted you to see. And I do not know who this woman is other than she is a law enforcement professional, but very interesting just listening to her free associate on what she thinks may be going on here. So I wanted to make sure and just play you a piece of this. And of course, Justice Served TV has done an incredible job. Definitely want to check out both the Easter and this video if you get a chance.
Left the note immediately.
Right.
Who waits 3 days?
Yeah, especially if their prize has health issues.
You know,
Right.
it's
Because
a
here's the deal.
diminishing value.
Diminishing value. You've got to feed her. You've got to make sure she stays alive. Well, if she's this difficult to move and she needs this medication, you should know within 3 days she's not well. We gotta go quick. But they've said nothing. These kidnappers with this ransom have waited for the FBI to be in place, the best in the world. They've waited for the sheriff's department to invite other teams to come in. There are people looking at her financials. They're looking, has her debit card been used? Has a credit card been used? Did anybody move her car last week? Telling you, he has not done a good job of explaining all that they've done. He just keeps saying, we don't have any video. We're working with these companies and they're not giving it to us.
Talk to
Well,
us
that has
about
nothing to do with her neighbor.
Talk to us about the way in and the way out. I mean, we can all go on Google and look at it. The way there has to be cell towers, right? There has to be cell towers and phone lines and things, right?
Yes. So
how does
the
that help?
aerial view, her home sits with a street that goes all the way down. I mean, it looks like it goes for 20 miles in each direction. There is no street in the backyard. You just see other houses in desert and land. So this person could not have parked behind her house and walked through the yard. They would have had to pull.
Okay. So I think I see here. So, right. So basically, there was only two options. There was either, and there should have been video of the cars that were the traffic on the one road. That's what she's saying, right? So there's no road behind the house. You should have cameras that are tracking, because one of the other things that some of the neighbors said is that there actually are a lot of videos, homes with video footage. Now, I don't know where those homes are in proximity to Nancy Guthrie's home, but what she seems to be suggesting is if there is only one access road to and from the house, then you either are going to see a car, right, in and around the time of this abduction, or how did they get there, right? You know, I mean, there's really no other option. And maybe that's part of the reason why the son-in-law was being looked at, because he's the one that dropped her off, allegedly. And if they have some type of footage of that street and they don't have, a lot of traffic going one way or the other on this street, then how the hell did this person, get out of the house? And the reason I say that is because they were doing the grid search in the backyard of the house. Whatever was behind the house, that's what they were searching, with a very large group of law enforcement agents, feds, it appears. So this is interesting listening to her.
To get to her house. So to me, that's important. And again, if you look at an aerial view, why that house? They all have pools. They all have beautiful fronts. They all have manicured lawns. What would drive you there? What would be the mark? So in other words, if we're burglars, right, we're looking for an easy way in, easy way out. Well, you already talked about forced entry. Not that easy. And why are you going to do it at 1 or 2 in the morning? These are decisions that these kidnappers or this one single person made.
All right. So interesting, right? Very interesting. I find it fascinating just hearing about how law enforcement think about a case like this, and think about how they would approach an investigation, all the different ways that you would try to figure out how to, essentially use all of the digital information that you have access to, use all this footage. One of the things that Mike Easter says also, or that he had said on Justice Served TV, is that, you have to, at a certain point, you stop collecting information and you start looking at what you have. That the first stage of an investigation is acquiring information, right? You're trying to get as much as you can, whether it's, closed circuit television or, meeting with different family members, developing your timeline, right? But then at a certain point, you have to essentially hunker down and say, all right, what do we have? What does it mean? Who are the folks that we need to be looking in the direction of? and then make decisions from there. So just interesting to hear how law enforcement is thinking about that, thinking about all of this. Jennifer Desuria, Fit 5671 says Savannah has said before any of this that she is very close to her sister. Yeah, I think they're very, very close family. She went missing 2 a.m. Sunday. First note was received Monday evening. Thank you for that timeline. Yeah. So, and the thing is, we don't know if the two notes are the same. I think one was an email, right? One was sent, I think the Bitcoin one to TMZ, I think was sent via email, if I'm not mistaken. And then the other one, I don't know if it's been reported how they got it, if it was an actual like piece of mail. I don't know. Very, very interesting. It's just interesting to start to see this, unfold. But it makes me nervous. If I'm being really honest, it makes me nervous because think about this. If you're the kidnapper, okay, and now all of a sudden you've got the eyes of the whole nation squarely focused on you, because this is not just all of us, right? This is everybody covering this story, everybody focused on it. And this Savannah Guthrie was supposed to be covering the Olympics, which is an international event, obviously an extraordinarily high profile event, which is going to make this even bigger, an even bigger story. So kind of like this lovely woman, Shelly was saying, Shelly or Sherry? I can't remember. I don't want to get her name wrong. I think maybe it was Sherry. Sherry McCollum, is that her name? So like she was saying though, right? Like, what's going on here? Now you've got the feds involved. You got the best, investigative agency in the universe with all the resources to spare. You waited so long as to get them involved. This screams mental illness to me. That's what I see here, because there isn't clear rhyme and reason. This does not feel like it's well organized, right? You got somebody who's breaking cameras. You've got somebody, I don't know. To me, this does not feel organized. It doesn't feel well thought through. And now you've got all this pressure on this person because everybody's focused on it. You're going to get caught is what's right. Whatever's happening now, whatever the idea was in your head, it's starting to sink in that this is not a good idea, and it is not going to probably end well for you. And that is a scary proposition, because what would you be thinking about if that's where you're at, right? If that's you and you realize, geez, my plan to make some money didn't work so well. Now I've got this 5-year-old woman who's in very poor physical health. We've got the whole world focused on this. I've got the world's best law enforcement agency up my tush. Like, I'm in trouble now. And that feels like the kind of moment where you start to make very, very, very bad decisions. It's a very scary situation. Let's see. Carolina K88 says someone predicted that she is hidden near water somewhere and that she will be found. Sadly, I don't think this woman is alive anymore. I know. It's like, I don't even want to think that, right? Because this poor family, this woman was just sound like a good lady, right? Just a good woman. Grandkids that just loved her to death. Obviously, her kids loved her to death. Just a good human being. Very, very sad situation. You hope if that does happen, if she doesn't make it through this, which is, look, highly unlikely at this point, right? I hope that we're all wrong. It's very unlikely. But if she doesn't make it through this, then we hope that whoever this person is, that there is swift justice for Nancy Guthrie and her family and friends, because this is absolutely tragic. Shelly, oh my God, member for 4 months. Yay, welcome, Shelly. So glad that you are here and you made it tonight. Much love to you as well. Okay, so there's so much. Other stuff that I wanted to cover tonight as well. Let's go through the rest of this video. We're going to play it out just to kind of go through the headlines a little bit. And then we are going to get to the evidence that, when it comes to sort of the justice for John O'Keefe, seeing justice for John O'Keefe, you want to keep in mind, right? Like, we're all, everybody's kind of got their little thing that they're working on. And obviously, I've been teamed up with Loophole Lawyer quite a bit lately. And he's part of the reason that I kind of refocused on the hour after the waterfall in this case, right? Because that's the time that matters. The time, let's face it, when all is said and done, what really matters here, if we want to know what happened to this man, we've got to focus on that time frame, which is between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. on that night. And so he's kind of going back through and trying to put a timeline together in an official capacity. And remember, everybody's got different strengths, right? You have lawyers, you have educators, you have nurses, right? You have the behavioral folks like myself. You've got people coming at this from all these different areas of expertise and knowledge and understanding. Then you've got, our mathematicians, our software engineers like Aussie Insider. She's fabulous. And essentially on the opposite side of the spectrum from me, because like trigonometry is never going to be something that I'm using and applying anywhere for any reason at any time, unless I'm helping my daughter with her homework. And even that, I'm not going to do well. So you have all these different people coming at this from different perspectives. And of course, like, if you give me Jen McCabe's cell phone, I'm not going to trust that. I just don't trust it. I don't trust it because it came from her, number one, the Commonwealth, number two, and every piece of data that's come from these people. What we trust the video evidence that they show in court. I mean, how can you trust it? We've seen inverted videos that the color is completely off. There's no metadata. They lie to the defense team and say there's metadata. Then the defense team shows up. There isn't. We see videos where taillights are blurred. We see $650,000 analysis of the vehicle where the taillight is just left off the analysis, right? We're being told, the taillight wouldn't have hit the back of John's Traverse, but there's no taillight on the exemplar, right? So, I mean, it's just constant with the Commonwealth. That's the reason why, I struggle with their data. But having said that, remember the backdrop to the conversation that we've all been having is, what is the timeline? Is the timeline 12:21 and change that Karen and John pull up in front of 34 Fairview? Or is the timeline 3 minutes later, 12:24 and change, the way that the Commonwealth has told us? And also, by the way, to be fair to them, the way that Richard Green had put in his report as well. So everybody had agreed originally that that was the time. Now, if Karen Reed had had her location services turned on, we could have solved this problem probably a lot more easily. Now, the way I've been trying to deal with this, because I can't know, I'm never going to know. There's no way that I'm ever going to figure out using trigonometry or any other analysis of data whether or not that car pulls up at 12:21 or 12:24. I will not know that. So I can't go with that. I have to turn to something that I can get information from effectively, because that's just not my area of expertise. I got to rely on other experts for that piece of information. And right now I've got two separate sets of data. But that's where I turn to humans, because humans are something I understand. And humans, if you're paying close attention, because lying is so freaking hard, they give up the goods. And that is what seems to be happening here. And that is what I want to highlight in large part tonight. I want to start to show you guys where and why it is that I am so sure now that John O'Keefe walks into that family room. And I know that's really hard to believe, right? Because in order for that to be true, the folks in this house have to all be in a pact, right, to lie their faces off together. That they are in on the world's best kept secret to date because they know he walked in. And they would have to know it because they're all lying about where they were during this time, right? So that's part of the conclusion that I came to over the weekend. And this is why we have Miss Julie Nagel to thank for my certainty. We can all thank her because of her just absolutely horrific inability to lie, which is a good thing. You know, let's face it. I'm grateful that she's the worst liar ever. But because of her real problem with lying, with being deceptive, she essentially outed it. She gave up the goods unwittingly. And, you know, you guys have heard me talk about leakage. We've all heard about leakage from many different places, right? You hear Veriscope talk about it. Certainly you've heard Sergio Denaro talk about it. But what it really is, I mean, there's different ways that it comes out. But what we've really seen with the Julie Nagel testimony is the absolute, it's like the textbook example. If I was teaching a course on leakage, I would actually cut out this clip that we're going to take a look at, and I would use it with a definition. The little definition would be in the box next to this clip. And I would read the little box, and then I would play the clip, and I would say, this is precisely what we are talking about, right? When somebody is holding in their mind the image of exactly what they don't want to tell you. So they have it in their mind, and they know their intent is to not say the very thing that they are thinking. That's the whole game, right? Do not say this thing. But it's like it's the elephant in the living room. It's like, don't say the elephant's there. Don't talk about the elephant. And then you open your mouth and you're asked a question, and the words that come out are, yep, big, giant, gray elephant in the middle of the living room. And then you know, and this is even more incriminating, right? The predictable response that came after was like confirmation of the degree to which this was incriminating. Because we also saw, and if you saw my 3-part video, you know this already, you know what honesty looks like. If somebody's making an honest mistake, like we saw with Karina Kolakithis, where she's asked about, you know, did she decide to go out that night? And she goes, she's like, yeah, I decided to go to CF. And then she goes, the waterfall. Like, I don't know why I started to say that. I didn't go to CF McCarthy's. But and then she says, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. She corrects herself because she catches it and goes, why did I say that? That's hello, right? Because when somebody makes a mistake and it's genuine and honest and it's benign, then you just own it. You're just like, oh, I don't know why I said that. That was weird. And then you change. You immediately make a correction, right? Well, that's true unless it's not a benign mistake, right? That's true unless you make a colossal mistake and bury yourself and bury the whole thing, give up the goods, actually out on the witness stand in front of the world, tell the truth by accident. A truth that is so incriminating that this one little thing that she says truly sinks the ship for everybody. It sinks the ship for everybody. Because if these guys, if this whole group, and you guys know this group, you know the group that's in the house at 34 Fairview Road on this night, you know who I'm talking about, Julie Nagel, Sarah Levinson, Brian Albert Jr., Brian Albert Sr., Brian Higgins, Nicole Albert, Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe. Am I missing anyone? You know this group, right? If this group are all lying about where they are during that hour, that all important hour that we're talking about, 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. If they're not in the dining room around the table, but they're all in the family room, but they want us to believe they're in the dining room, there's really only one reason why you move yourself from the dining room as a group, as a collective. There's only one reason why everybody can't be in there. Only one reason. And that's the crazy part, because if the guy never came in the house, who the hell cares where you were? Who cares where you were? Who cares who was there? Who cares where Colin Albert was? Who cares? Right? There should be absolutely zero deception for anyone at any time around any topic, because who cares? Right? And that is the problem. That is the problem, guys. This is the issue that the folks in that house have. Because now, not that I wasn't sure before, I was obviously sure before, but now I feel entitled to my certainty. And I felt entitled to it before, but now I am as sure-footed as anyone has ever been. Absolutely as clear as I could possibly be that this group is lying. The whole group. Not one person, not two people. The whole group is completely full of shit. And that's hard. That's hard for my brain to want to accept. And that's why I couldn't place him in the house. That's why it has taken me 1.5 years to believe that he walked in that family room, even though all of the evidence was staring at all of us. That's the part that is so important, right? It's like, Sam, the information was there.
No, he was like fully outside already, and then I went out, and it was just Ricky's truck.
Okay. And so at some point later, there was another vehicle that came up?
Prior.
Okay.
Correct.
And can you describe that vehicle for the jury? Sort of what did it look like? What kind of vehicle was it?
Yeah, it was a black SUV.
So for those that don't know, this is Miss Juliana Nagel. She was in the house at 34 Fairview Road on the night in question. And importantly, Miss Juliana is a very close friend to the Albert family, to Brian Albert Jr. She's the one that watches Jen McCabe's dog when Brian Albert Jr. is unavailable, when they go out of town. She's a long time like BFF of Brian Albert Jr. She is also prominently featured, in case you didn't know, in the video where Aidan Carney and Meredith O'Neill are coming out of C.F. McCarthy's, having a meal of food, as Aidan would say, and they are like accosted oddly by what they call the goons, right? All in front of D&E Pizza, Chris Albert's shop, as they were coming out, right? So clearly in a very defensive posture, somebody, I can't remember exactly now who it was that originally, I think it was Colin actually, that originally gets wind that Aidan is eating at C.F. McCarthy's. Now remember, C.F. McCarthy's shares a wall with D&E Pizza. And I just did not know that until I got there, until I was standing in front of C.F. McCarthy's and standing at the same time in front of D&E Pizza. I did not realize that they actually share a wall. They are very much right next to each other. So when you walk out of one, right, you can walk right into the next one. And there's a bench right in front of D&E. And C.F. McCarthy's in the summertime has 2 open windows, right? So when the bar is open, there's no glass. There's just these kind of booths, like tables, inside the window. And then you go in and there's bar tables, and you've seen the C.F. McCarthy's footage. You know, you've seen Karen and John at the bar, kind of in that middle. The bar is actually in the middle of the entire restaurant. I'm not so sure you can see that from the footage that we get from the CF McCarthy's video, but nonetheless, it is right next door. So Julie Nagel is actually seated on that bench. It is her brother, the middle brother, Sam, who is poking at Meredith O'Neill in this video, Aiden's ex-girlfriend, and like telling her, you know, you're pretty, you're beautiful. Why are you with this schmuck? He's kind of like the class clown figure in this video. Ryan Nagel is there, also Julie's older brother, but Julie's behavior is the behavior to pay close attention to. Now, I didn't cut it up for this, but if you haven't seen it, you should. It's important. It helped me to understand who she is and to explain to myself, this woman bleeds blue. If the color blue is the color of the Albert family, Juliana is full on team blue, right? All the way in the boat, fully. If that boat sinks, Juliana is going to sink with it. This is the team she is on. She is all the way on that team, 100%. That's important because you have to keep in mind, you guys, we're talking about the murder of a police officer. It's like, I have to keep reminding myself of that because this is so freaking serious, right? Like, could you imagine you're hanging out for your friend's birthday, that guy's parents and their friends come back from the bar, and somehow within an hour, a man is dead? Somebody in this house is responsible for that, and everybody's in a full-blown panic trying to figure out what to do, and you're there? I mean, this is a nightmare, like the most extreme version of a nightmare that anyone could ever live. And that's the reason why, for me, for a long time, I could not get him in that house. I couldn't get John O'Keefe in the house because I could not imagine that a person like this could allow that to happen and let it go, right? I could not imagine that. So I just had to find a workaround. And that was why I had John outside. I couldn't get around it. And then Juliana helped me because, number one, the first big tell was this part right here, which we're about to hear from her first. Now, what is she talking about? Remember, Juliana is supposed to get a ride home from her big brother, Ryan. Ryan is in his friend Ricky's truck with Ryan's girlfriend, Heather. That truck pulls in front of 34 Fairview right behind Karen and John's Lexus. Okay, so the truck is right behind Karen and John, who are already parked in front of 34 Fairview. Okay. So now Juliana is going outside to tell her brother that she's going to stay. And this is what she's being asked about right now by Adam Lally.
Sort of park the truck?
No, he was like fully outside already, and then I went out, and it was just Ricky's truck.
And so at some point later, there was another vehicle that came up?
Prior.
Prior. Okay.
Correct.
And can you describe that vehicle for the jury? Sort of what did it look like? What kind of vehicle was it?
Yeah, it was a black SUV.
Okay. So now Juliana is not honest a lot through this testimony. But when she is, there are pretty clear indicators of honesty in the same way that there are clear indicators of dishonesty. And it is clear to me that she believes what she's saying right here, that she believes that this car, that Karen and John and the Lexus is out in front of 34 Fairview before her brother pulls up. So she doesn't see them. Now, we know they are there, without a doubt. They are there. So she doesn't see them for whatever reason. Probably she's not looking. She's probably drunk, right? Let's be honest. She's been drinking at Brian Albert Jr.'s house for 5 hours. She gets there at 8 o'clock, 7:38. It's now 12:15 in the morning. She's been there the whole time drinking for his birthday celebration, right? So she probably just doesn't see the car, but it is there. By every other account, that car, Karen Reed, is still sitting in front of that house when that truck pulls away and passes them. And that's how we know that Karen Reed is alone in the car with the dome light on, because Heather Maxson sees her there alone. No John, just Karen, right? But for some reason, Julie thinks that this happened already. Julie thinks that the Lexus was already at the house before her brother shows up out front. Now, this is absolutely critical information. It is so important because how is that possible, right? How could she, if she didn't see the car outside, how could she possibly believe so completely that the car is there before Ryan? So that's the question. Okay.
And had you ever seen that vehicle before?
No.
This is Julie Nagel actually being very honest. This is what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to move this so we don't need to hear more from me. Here we go. All right. This is what I want you to see.
The car, he took my full vodka.
So this is Karen Reed now. Remember, this actually, you're going to see a part that I think was clipped from the Body in the Snow documentary. It was filmed and then taken out. So we don't hear this in the final cut version of Body in the Snow, but she does end up, if you see like the B-roll or whatever, I think that's where it is, where she tells us that she actually sees John go into the house, right?
Photo, which is sitting in the cup holder. And I saw him reach the breezeway door, which is the side front door. And he opened the door and went to walk in.
So she actually tells us that he breaks the plane. She sees him literally break the plane and walk in. And that's when she turns her attention away. Now, and I love to hear what you guys think about this, because for a long time, I just assumed that she was kind of foggy, right? Been drinking, doesn't really remember, maybe has some like loose idea in her head, or maybe just, has heard this so many times, has played it out in her head so many times, that maybe like she just doesn't remember what happened, but has like a vague image, right? That was my thinking. Maybe she didn't really see it. Not that she's lying. I don't believe that Karen is lying about this at all. My thought is maybe it's just not clear. It's fuzzy, right? It's like a brownout. I'm not 100%. Like I'm 40%, but I'm not 100%. That was my guess. That was my thought. Because again, remember, I have been conservative. I'm playing this conservative. That's the crazy, how I still am doing that, I don't know. But, right, I'm saying, all right, it is so hard for me to believe that these 8 people in this house, I don't know if it's exactly 8, but that the people in this house could be colluding to hide a murder of a police officer. That is my very last option. Like, I can't go there. I have to try to find a workaround for it, because I know he wasn't killed by a car, right? We know that that's not what happened. So there's only really one other choice. Somebody in this house is responsible. Now, Loophole Lawyer believes that. He believes that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert are responsible, or mostly Brian Higgins with some help potentially from Brian Albert, and that it happened outside of view of everybody else in the house. And up until very recently, that's what I believe too, right? Because I couldn't get past all of these people lying about a Boston police officer dying in front of them and just being cool with that. Like, how could that be? They're not sociopaths. I mean, they're acting like it now, but they're not. Like I've said this many times, sociopathy is extraordinarily rare. And when you see it, you know it. And these guys aren't it. So to change my mind was very difficult to do. Like, I really needed to be convinced, completely convinced, to believe that this man walked into that house. So
this is the arrival of John O'Keefe's phone at 34 Fairview, correct? At the end of it says, show the device moving west from the roadside towards the house. That's what you wrote, correct?
Correct.
Now, this is Ian Whiffen. This is Ian Whiffen, the Commonwealth cell phone expert. This is Ian Whiffen's report. So Ian Whiffen, Ian Whiffen, it's just funny to say because he's the worst of the worst, but he reports, right, that John's phone pulls up and then the phone begins to move in a westerly direction towards the house. But that's not all. This is so important, right? Because this is in the Commonwealth's witness report.
The next says, from the combination of device location and bearing, it does appear that the device started to move towards the house. The first part is again a statement that the device has started to move toward the house. This location data is immediately followed by 12 minutes of low accuracy records, which offer no reliable location information.
Okay. This is important also. So after the phone is moving in a westerly location towards the house, it is then immediately followed by low accuracy information. And the interesting thing about that is in some of the other reports that we're also going to look at, like Richard Green's report or affidavit on Jen McCabe's phone, there was also low accuracy data on that phone while she was at this house, right? And what's the most obvious reason for low accuracy data to show up on a phone? Well, let's hear from Ian Whiffen.
The reason for such low accuracy location data at this time is not known, as there are many possible reasons why the accuracy was reduced. There's a little grammar issue there. This could include reasons such as the device entered a building covered area, the result of weather conditions, geography, poor connectivity. Interesting and notable, you did not include.
Let's look at the circle. Okay, so we look at the circle, and you'll note that the circle encompasses, right, the house, obviously. Not as much the garage area, but the house. And remember, even though he's made them separate circles, actually, he ends up admitting that it's just as likely that the phone could be in any one of the places in the circle. Like, it's not more likely that it's in one place or another during this time. It's low accuracy information. Right? Okay, so interesting, makes sense. Okay, and this is not new. None of this is news. Just reviewing the old stuff because, again, I'm trying to help it make sense how I could be so completely convinced all of a sudden that this man has walked into this house. So I'm putting all the pieces together and it's happening in real time. We're also going to take a look at Richard Green's report because there's a couple of things in there that I don't know that I realized, and I don't know if you guys know either. So, and believe me, I'm going to get to the chat in just a minute.
That depiction in your timeline that you discussed with a jury yesterday, did you?
She is honestly claiming that the SUV was in front of 34 Fairview before she goes out to speak to her brother. Yes, she is. And she's telling us the truth. Okay, here we go.
The SUV wasn't there when my brother was there. It was like before.
Unfamiliar with the town that she didn't live in, Karen went slightly out of the way to get there, coming from the east on Cedar Crest Road. She missed the left-hand turn onto Fairview Road, did a U-turn in the driveway, and then she went back to Fairview Road. When she did,
all right, so
a truck was coming from the opposite.
This is the depiction, and this is important because you have Karen and John coming from the north side of this image, and then the truck coming from the south side of this image, and they're both turning onto Fairview.
opposite direction and was trying to turn left on a Fairview Road. Inside that truck was Ricky D'Antano, Heather Maxon, and her boyfriend Ryan Nagel, whose sister Julie Nagel was a friend of Brian Albert Jr. and had called him looking for a ride home.
And then Ricky turned after them. How far ahead of Ricky were they?
Now, let me explain something else. Where they turned onto Fairview, the house is not far down the street, right? You can get to 34 Fairview from, two different sides of the street. If you were coming from the other direction, it would be a much longer drive to the house. They came from the short side, or in other words, the bottom of the hill. It's actually on a slope, and this is the bottom of the hill. 34 is just like it sounds. It's number 34. So it's ostensibly very close to the bottom of that street. And this is not a long drive. I want to be clear about that. So I don't know why it is that one car would get there much more quickly than the other car. But that is one possibility. And this is the theory. This is a question. Is it possible that Karen turns down the street and gets to the house with enough time before Heather and Ryan and Ricky so that they do not see John O'Keefe get out of that car and walk into the house? Now, that doesn't have to be true. He could do that and they're just not paying attention also. That's certainly not impossible. But the question is, could he have gotten out of Karen's Lexus and into the house before Ricky, Heather, or Ryan Nagel see that happen, right? And then, of course, before Julie Nagel comes out.
Maybe 100 feet.
Could you see them the entire time?
No.
Could you see them the entire time?
No.
So Heather is saying here, we did not follow them from the time we made the turn to the house. At one point, they were not within view. And that's interesting, right? Now, we don't know if that's true. I mean, we're asking this poor woman to remember something that was completely insignificant on a night 4 years ago to her at the time, right? Who knows what she really saw? Who knows what anybody really saw in that truck? But we do know they all report that car was in front of them without a doubt, and that there was a woman alone as they went to pull away, that there was no guy in or around the SUV when they go to drive away, right? The fact that Julie is so convicted that this happens before, this is the first sort of red flag for me that said, hey, the only way to be sure of that without having seen the SUV is if she sees John. And that certainly makes sense, right? If you see John come in the house, then you know for sure in your mind that the Lexus had to have gotten there before your brother, because he walked in and you walked out, right? So that's one possibility. And for me, it's a very real possibility because it's the only way to explain how she could be so sure of that. The other thing that is interesting, Jennifer McCabe, in her efforts to make the timeline for Ms. O'Keefe, asks Juliana Nagel for the text message that she sent to her brother, or that he sent to her, because she wants to know what time did that happen, right? She's trying to make the timeline. And for me, why would that be important? Who cares? Why does that matter to Jennifer McCabe 2 days after this incident happens? Well, to me, the most obvious answer is, well, because if John walks in just before she walks out, then it gives Jennifer McCabe a very clear indicator of exactly the moment that John O'Keefe walks into the house. This is important. And I'm going to show you why right now. So take a look at this. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't. So these are the texts and calls allegedly to John, right? So she texts him at 12:27. She calls again. She also speaks to him at 12:18. Those are earlier. So I'm looking at after the 12:18 phone call when she allegedly is pulling up into the driveway at 34 Fairview on the phone, explaining where the house is, because they're turning around. They're now in the neighborhood turning around. Essentially, they passed Fairview and had to just turn around, I think it's a U-turn, like a cul-de-sac, or she pulled into the driveway in front of it. After the turn, I don't remember. But right after they pass Fairview, she does like a 3-point turn, turns around. So this is the timeline. Now, this timeline really does not make much sense, does it? It just doesn't make much sense. Like texting John at 12:27, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, fine. So now we're pulling that. So just note that. Note that. And now we're going to take a look at this. So before we start this, I want to hear from you guys. What I'm going to be doing here, and I really want to get your feedback on this, because this is it. Like, this is for all the cards. We're trying to figure out what happened during this time. And there's only a handful of people that know the answer to that question. And those people, unfortunately, are in that house. So there's only one way we're putting it together, and that's information from these folks. One way or another, right? One way or another. So I'm turning now to all of you. Okay. That was vested. You guys are so funny. I'm trying to follow different trains of thought while I'm reading all of this, you guys. Oh, welcome new members. Yay, we got new members. Welcome, Terry, Doria. Yay, Liz Rose. Yay, got a membership. Hopefully you got one of my memberships. Very exciting. Hopefully you did. At Jamie's on 6181 sends £5. Sam, no Higgins Jeep. Oh, yeah. No Higgins Jeep. No, it's really interesting. I was going to put together how, like a lying montage about the Jeep, but it's so bizarre. I mean, there's just no Jeep there. There's no Jeep there. No Jeep there, according to Ryan Nagel, Heather, Ricky. No Jeep there, according to Brian Jr. No Jeep there. The only people that put a Jeep there, who you're going to hear from too, are obviously Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, and then Nicole Albert, although Nicole and Brian Albert, kind of plead the fifth. They're like, I think there was a Jeep there, but I can't be sure. Both of them sort of say the same thing. The other thing that I want you to be on the lookout for. So it's very clear to me that Caitlin Albert, Nicole Albert, and Brian Jr., they worked together on their testimony. Those guys rehearsed together. They have the exact same story. Everybody supports everybody in that triad. It seems like Brian Sr. must have coached Nicole and then somehow like the wires got crossed, or like the game of telephone, she didn't quite get the message. So she passed on a message that got somehow distorted. And then all three of them are telling that same distorted message, not exactly what dad told them to say. So it's clear that the four of them did not rehearse together, but that the three of them did, and that he gave his directives very, very much to Nicole. It's so, I mean, it's very, very obvious when you start getting into the weeds with all these people. It's just very, very clear. That part is so very clear. It's wild. It's wild when you start like really seeing that and hearing the exact same stories from all these people, right? And then of course Jen and Matt, who tell the exact same story about where the Jeep is, right? And then there's also one point. So you know how Jen McCabe is so committed to the story about how she's getting up and she's going to the front door, the storm door is open, the actual door is open, just the storm door is shut at the front foyer. And she's sitting at the table and she's getting up and she's going to the storm door. She's doing this however many times, and then she's seeing Karen's SUV straight out front, except that Brian Jr., who's allegedly sitting right next to her, never sees her get up, never sees her go to the window, never sees any of that. Instead, he sees Uncle Matt looking out the window, right? I mean, it's just, you guys, every person, every single one of them who gives any configuration of who is seated at this table, who's where, you would expect that if they were seated at that table, for the most part, you would have that configuration be very, very similar, right? It would be like, it was me, Julie, Sarah, and Brian Jr. And, you know, those two are behind me at the whatever, somewhere else. Everybody gives a different configuration. Everybody says something completely different, right? Sarah's got Nicole Albert sitting with her back to the storm door, to the foyer. Juliana's got herself in the same spot that Sarah has herself. You know, Jen is sitting at the table, according to Jen. According to Sarah, Jen and Matt never sat at the table. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. When you actually listen to each and every one of them, every time they recount who is where on that night, at that time, the most important time, the time of the crime, nobody tells the story the same way. Nobody. Everybody tells a different story. It's absolutely insane. This is a police officer died. This is how you guys treat this? It makes me so upset, because how do you sleep at night? How do you go about your daily life carrying this with you and just going about life like, yep, humdy hum, yep, so what? Somebody murdered a police officer, you know, I lied about it and commit perjury and tried to put this murder on an innocent person knowingly, but no big deal. I don't get it. Okay. This is the thing that I want everybody to take away from this conversation tonight. It is so important. It is so important. It changed my whole world. Okay. My whole world. Because at the end of the day, and I remember hearing Sergio Gennaro talk about this. I remember hearing Veriscope talk about this. But when I actually took the time to analyze innocent people, holy crap. Like, they use the words baseline, and I understand why and how important that is. But there's another part of baseline that kind of gets left out, because the implication is, oh, well, it's personal. Everybody speaks in a different way. And while that's true, there are enormously clear patterns for how honest people communicate under oath during a trial. Right? And it's not a hard thing to see. It's like any person with eyes can see it. It's just so clear, right? So they are sitting, kind of sitting upright, listening very carefully, really almost hanging on every word that the attorney in front of them, whether it's the prosecutor or the defense attorney, is uttering. Because, well, I'm not going to get there yet. So there's careful listening. They're leaning in, right? They're leaning in because they're trying to hear. And you can see there's like a laser focus. There's no thinking. Now, important, how do you know when somebody's thinking? If you're just looking at somebody from afar, how do you know if they're thinking? Well, I used to teach mindfulness and meditation. And like clockwork, anybody new to meditation and mindfulness class, you can tell if they're new because they're moving. They're moving like crazy, like they can't stop moving. Well, when you are, let's say you're laying in bed at night and you can't quite fall asleep, your mind is going, going, going. Well, part of the problem is you keep moving, and when you keep moving, you activate your nervous system, and so it gets harder and harder. It keeps you awake. So when we're thinking, we're very often moving. Now, I ask you, if you are testifying in a court of law, should there be a lot of thinking going on? Right? Probably not, because what are we doing? We're listening carefully to what the question being asked is, and then we're spontaneously responding in accordance with the question being asked. Now, while we probably have done some degree of preparation with an attorney, we probably have some vague idea as to what the questions are going to be, right? But we're answering honestly. So how much prep do you really need, right? Like if you're being called to testify as a witness because you saw something, you know, like, I don't have to lie. All I have to do is tell them what I saw because that's what I'm being called here to do. So you don't need to do a lot of prep, right? You're just going to be asked questions about what you saw. So all you have to do is listen carefully to the question and then give a spontaneous response based on whatever the question is, right? And it's really simple. Like if somebody asked you, what time did you get up yesterday morning? You would stop, you would think, yesterday I got up at 6:50. Well, my alarm went off at 6:50 because that's when I have to get my daughter up to make sure she's ready for school on time. Right? So it's not hard. It's like, this is just what happened. I'm just reporting what happened. I'm reporting. That's it. However, these are the patterns that you see. You see them leaning in. You see them kind of like moving their ear, especially with Adam Lally. You see them putting their ear because he's right. He's not loud. You can't hear him so easily. You have to really focus. Like you see Karina, she's squinting. She can't hear him. Right? And these are things that are universal, guys. If we can't hear, I don't know why. Why do we squint? Because we're really trying to use all of our sensory input to understand what's being asked of us. Right? We're reading lips. We don't even know it, but that's what we're doing. Here's what you don't see. You don't see if I am asked, what time, Samantha, did you get up yesterday morning? You don't hear me interjecting, well, actually, it's really funny. I used to get up at blah, 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 but then that didn't work out, and it didn't work out because my daughter used to be late all the time. And, then my ex-husband, and he does it like this, and that doesn't really work. So there's no extra information. I'm not volunteering information that is irrelevant to the question. I am simply answering to the best of my ability, the question. Period. Full stop. End of discussion. That's it. That's all that happens. It's this amazing thing. A person asks a question, the witness answers the question. What? It's like mind blowing. And then this other really bizarre thing happens where if they're not quite sure about what the intention is of the question, like if they're like, what are you really asking me right now? They kind of give that look like, I don't know. And then they're like, I'm not sure I understand, or could you rephrase, or, they make it clear that they don't understand the question. They make that known explicitly. Then there's another question asked, and then they answer once again to the best of their ability. And here's the very clear message that you get from these witnesses, these people who are trying to be honest. It's clear that they are trying to be honest in the sense that they're trying to be accurate and not do more or less. In other words, they're not trying, there's no intent. It's like, I am just wanting to be clear about what I saw. And my objective is to not insinuate that I saw more than I saw and not insinuate that I saw less than I saw. In fact, at one point, Heather Maxson actually corrects the judge, not in a mean or scolding way, but the judge asks a question and she I forget exactly how she does it, but she rephrases what the judge asked almost in a corrective way. And that would be very scary to do, by the way. A judge, they're scary. They're the authority in the room. They're a judge. Whether it's Beverly Cannoni or anybody else, they're the authority. So for you to look at the judge and actually make a corrective statement, it just shows you this person wants to be clear, concise, and wants to paint the picture, no more and no less. That's it. And that's the pattern. It's nothing else. That's all it is. It's the most simple and clear pattern you've ever seen, and you see it over and over and over again. Or there are sometimes people that will use, because, or start a statement with so, sure. But it's like a one-off. Right? There's no stuttering, there's no elaboration. And I would say there's no tense, incorrect tense mess ups. But of all of the indicators that are the most obvious, I'm talking about highest level now. This is anybody with eyes. This is not anybody, psychologically minded. I'm talking about if you have eyes. The most obvious tell that someone is being deceptive is they are not answering the question being asked, and they are interjecting extra information. And they do it. And it's just fascinating, you guys. It's like we get baited in. I get baited in. I know it's happening, but I can't help myself because as a normal human, I want to hear what they're saying. I want to listen to the answer they're giving. So even though I know Nicole Albert is as full of it as anyone has ever been in 90% of every word she utters throughout the totality of her testimony during the first Karen retrial, and I will point it out, don't you worry. I came with the goods. I will show you exactly what I'm talking about, right? I'll show you the lies so you can see them. Don't take my word for it. I want you to see them clear as day, right? 90% of what she says, approximately, it's irrelevant. It has either nothing to do with the question being asked, or she evades the question being asked, or she interjects information not asked. But because I want to know what she's saying, I forget the question. Do you know how many times I had to go back and re-ask wait a minute, what was the question? What was the question? Each time, it's like shocking because when you realize the question was, you know, what time did you go out that evening? And somehow I'm, hearing about, I don't know, Julie and the donuts, right? Julie leaving donuts for Brian Jr. because that's this funny joke they have between. It's like, wait a minute. Why are you telling me about donuts? You were asked a question about like what time did you do X, Y, or Z? It would have required a one-word answer. But 6 sentences later, you are on another planet. And like a normal person, we follow that. And we're like, oh, that sounds like it could be, because we're not listening carefully. And this is where it gets important, right? It's like these people, their statements, you guys this is it. I mean, they're what is standing in between us and our ability to understand what really happened to this police officer. And if you're listening to this, my guess is you care an awful lot about what happened that night. And if we're ever going to figure it out, there's only one group of people that know. And they're the ones standing in our way. They have the answers. So we've got to figure out what those answers are. And the crazy part, when I realized that Juliana Nagel is actually giving up the goods, and I missed it because of my own bias, it was upsetting. Also, very, very happy to have realized it because it's like, oh, this is me interjecting my bias. That's why I didn't see this. Okay. All right. Noted. Where else am I doing that? And how can I not keep doing that? So now that I've said all that, and I know it's a lot, but I'm saying it because you guys, it could not be more important. It's like once you see what honesty means, you immediately know when you're being lied to. It's just so obvious. Now, there's one thing I want to show you. It's nuts. It's so crazy. Hopefully it's right here. Okay, it's close. It's close. Is this?
You meant it first.
All right. Here's what I want to show you. So I'm going to get this queued up and then I'm going to I'm going to check out some of your comments too. Let me pull this off the stage. We're going to take a look at Nicole Albert. This is so much fun. You guys are going to love this. Nicole Albert was fun. It was fun. It's a fun one to do. It's a fun analysis to do because she's a trip. She's a trip. I don't know how else to say it, but boy, man, she is a trip. She's an interesting lady. She absolutely hates Karen Reed. That's what I learned. That was one of the big takeaways from my analysis of her testimony, which I'm still in the midst of, is not completed yet. Here we go. Okay, so while I'm getting that. Let's bring her on the stage. We'll move her this one. All right, so we're going to take a look at her in just a moment. I had questions that I starred, and now I don't know where they are, and it's so annoying. At 007 True Crime sends $4.99, £4. Higgins was likely using ATF Dodge. Please analyze his testimony. I will. Closely on direct. Swap for Jeep later than 12:35. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's interesting. I have definitely heard this. I have my eye on it. I have, I've noticed that there's some, I don't know if it's speculation. I will say this. Anything that involves their New York trip, anything at all, it seems so shady to me because they're definitely being deceptive about it. And I don't know what the nature of that deception is. I don't know. Did they go down to New York and is it about the vehicles they don't want us to know about? Is it about who else was there? Did they go do something else while they're in New York? Did they stop at a freaking strip club? I don't know. Why does it matter? I don't know, but there's clearly something about the first part of the day that they don't want us to know. I also think part of the deception around the earlier part for Higgins and Brian Albert is that they are drinking. that they are doing a lot more drinking than they want us to know about. And that's another reason why they lie about what time they get back in town, right? Like, oh, it was dark out, but I don't know, it's like, so what? If you're back at 4:00 and you start drinking at 4:00, do any of us care? Because here's the only thing this is what drives me nuts about these people too. It drives me absolutely nuts. Like, guys, let's be honest. If you or anyone you know and love was being accused of the murder of a police officer, a very well-respected, beloved police officer, wouldn't you do anything and everything you could to prove that those people or you had nothing to do with it? Like, wouldn't you turn over your phone? Wouldn't you I'd be contacting professionals to find out, like, how can I get my own data so that I can show the world? I'll release it all. I'll make a whole website. Here's every document about any place I've ever been to prove that my child had nothing to do with this at all, in any way, any shape, in any form. And maybe nobody believes it, and maybe people don't take that seriously, whatever, but I'm going to still do that because I want to be honest. Like, I'm honest. I want to be honest. I didn't do this. Come on. This is crazy. I didn't do this. But you notice we never get any of that. Have you noticed we get exactly the opposite of all of that? The exact opposite. We get destroyed phones, we get half-assed screenshots, we get video that has missing time or blurred out segments, we get discolored video, we get video with blurs on it. We get exactly the opposite. We get deleted call logs, we get cell phone reports without the key, so that we know that it's not, we can't verify that it's legitimate. It's a legitimate extraction that wasn't tampered with. This is what we get. So any opportunity these people get to prove their innocence, they undermine it like intentionally. That makes me nuts. It absolutely makes me nuts. It really, really does. Oh, you bet I am, blessed Ma. Mama. Member for 2 months. Thank you for being a member for 2 months. You bet I am. I am absolutely looking at Sarah Levinson's testimony again. She is so interesting because, everybody has like a different reaction to stress. These folks, I mean, everybody, but also these folks, right? Like Caitlyn and Brian Jr. were obviously taught and told, treat this like it's no big deal. Just go out there and be very personable, win over the courtroom with your award-winning personality, right? Right off the bat. Don't worry about the fact that every word is a reduction of commitment from Caitlyn. She's absolutely, Caitlyn might be the worst offender. Besides Tristan, put a pin in that. I saw somebody in the chat. I tried to find you from the very beginning. I think you were there before the show even started, and I tried to star you, and I can't find you now. But somebody put in the chat, I'm still weary of Tristan. And I have to tell you that for a long time, I wrote it off as he's clearly just horrific under pressure. And I said, he's horrific under pressure, but he's like a wuss. No, what could he have possibly done? Right. But I don't, it's a great point. It's a great point. It certainly is. The only thing I would say about Tristan is, well, we could talk about this in a different time because there's a lot to say about it, but he certainly doesn't help himself. Let me put it that way. If you haven't seen Tristan, I'm going to play just a few clips. It is the most incriminating testimony. And the funny, well, not funny, haha, but completely bizarre part of that is if you didn't have any involvement in any of this night, why would you be this shady? I mean, it just makes everybody look bad, right? It's like he won't answer any questions. He doesn't remember times. I mean, the whole thing is just so incriminating. So he doesn't help himself, not in the least. But don't worry, I am absolutely looking at Sarah Levinson. Her reaction to stress is a freeze. So she does the exact opposite. And that can be very misleading because it looks like calm. When you first look at Sarah, like she looks like an honest witness, right? She's kind of leaning in. But then you watch her chest and you can see that like her breathing is labored. And then you start to notice that there's like a freeze response happening. And then it's like, okay, then the sort of, right, you start to kind of string it together. So I have to go back. Admittedly, I have not done a soup to nuts analysis, just pulling clips to try to verify other people's statements and making observations to this point. But I absolutely will. It is on my list. Don't you worry. Higgins is a fascinating character in all this. Yeah, I mean, he's a fascinating character. I am so sure that he is experiencing consciousness of guilt that I'm trying to figure out how all of these other people fit in first. Because I will tell you, and this is where Loophole Lawyer and I differ a little bit, one of the challenges, because I did spend a lot of time on Higgins before, and one of the challenges that I walked away with him is there is such an incredible amount of guilt, but it's very contrite. It's very apologetic. It's very like, I'm not responsible for this directly, and I did everything I could to help him. Now, I'm not 100% on that. I would say I'm 60%. Like, I vacillate because there's such an oozing of consciousness of guilt. I don't know. I don't know, you guys. I will tell you, I'm still struggling with Colin. I just can't overlook him. I wish I could. I really wish I could. I wish I could just make this Brian Higgins problem. But these people do such a horrific job of lying about Colin Albert. They make it fundamentally impossible to rule him out completely. They really, really do. They really, really do. At Miss Holmes 66 sends $2. Sam, you were so on it with every bad actor. Well, I appreciate you so much for saying that. I am so like focused on these guys right now because I want to know with every fiber of my being what really happened. But I have to admit, I fight myself. Like, I am so reluctant to believe conspiracy theories. I'm so reluctant to buy that kind of stuff that it's like, I really have to be forced. I have to really it's like, I have to really believe it. And it takes me a while to get there because I'm going to fight my own instinct not to believe that a group of 8 people are going to conspire to cover up the murder of a police officer, then put it on an innocent person. And then here's the other part that makes me physically sick. This part makes me physically sick. And then intentionally befriend his family, his best friends, and most egregiously, his children. Look them in the eye and claim that the bad actor is someone who had nothing to do with it. Like that is like other level shit. It's like one thing if you were drunk and whatever happened in that house, it happened under the influence of alcohol, and it was not on purpose. Nobody intended to murder this man, clearly. But anything that happened after that, to me, it's almost worse. I know it's not worse, but it's almost worse. Because how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you do that? All right, so we're going to hear now. Here's what I want you to watch. Remember that list that I showed you at just a few minutes ago, the honesty list. Like, Remember what honesty is. And now I want you to watch Nicole for the first 2 minutes. This is just going to be 2 minutes. I'm going to take myself off the screen. I'm going to run to the bathroom while you guys watch this for 2 minutes. Okay, here we go. I have to go put her on. I have to find her. Here she is. Okay.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
My name's Nicole Albert, Albert.
And where do you live?
Norwood.
And about how long have you lived in Norwood?
About a year.
And prior to moving to Norwood, where did you live? Where did you live prior to that?
Canton.
How long had you lived in Canton?
My whole life.
Now, the specific address, where did you live in Canton prior to your move to Norwood?
34 Fairview Rd.
And how long did you live at that house?
About 12 years.
And are you married, ma'am?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's your husband's name?
Brian Albert.
Does he work?
He's retired from the Boston Police.
About how long was he an officer with Boston?
About 30 years.
And do you have children?
Yes, we have 5.
And how old are your 5 children?
My oldest daughter is 28, and then I have a son who's 25. I have another son who's actually 23 today. And then I have twins, a boy and a girl, who are 20.
And your oldest daughter, what's her name?
Caitlin.
Your oldest son, what is his name?
Brian Jr.
And Brian Jr., does he live with you currently? Now, your other children, do they live with you as well?
My oldest daughter lives with her boyfriend in Easton, and my son Brendan lives with us. He's just finishing up college, so he's graduating this month from college, so he's back with us. My twin daughter, goes to college, so she's home now for the summer, but she has an apartment in Bridgewater. And then the twin boy is in the military.
And which branch is he?
The Marine Corps.
Now, if I could turn your attention to January 28th, 2022. Do you recall that day?
Mm-hmm.
And do you recall what day of the week that was?
It's a Friday.
And at the time of January 28th, 2022, did you work?
Yes, I've been a part-time lunch lady for about 9 years.
All right. So note her body language. She's leaning in. She's answering with succinct, direct answers. And those answers are to the question that is asked. So for the first 2 minutes, it's like miraculous. We see precisely the same pattern that you would expect to see from honest witnesses. It's like mind-boggling. What? Nicole Albert is doing what you would expect. It's amazing. Right? It's amazing. Okay, so we'll continue to watch. Remember the pattern. Remember what we're looking for. Leaning in, listening carefully to the question that's asked, spontaneously answering that question, and not interjecting any extra information that is not asked for. Just answering. We're just asked and then answering. Now, if somebody interjects extra information, you have to ask yourself, like, why would I do that? Why would I give information that isn't asked for? This is such an important question. Now, maybe that answer is a little bit obvious, but you have to remember you're testifying as a witness. Like, I'm just a witness. I was just there. John O'Keefe never came into the house, right? So theoretically, every single time she answers a question, we should expect to see the same pattern, because this is just an innocent bystander, witness. John was never there, remember? Okay, so be on the lookout. Play again.
And you since retired, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You've since retired from that?
I haven't retired. I just didn't go back this past year, but...
And around that date of So January 28th, 2022, what, if any, significance was the next day of January 29th?
January 29th was my son Brian Jr.'s 23rd birthday.
And over the course of that week, sort of leading up into the weekend, what, if any, plans did you make with reference to your son and his birthday?
He had mentioned he was going to get together with some friends on the Saturday night, the 29th, for his birthday. And I had said, okay, well, maybe Friday night, if anyone's around, any of our aunts or uncles or anyone, maybe we'll take you out, just local for some apps and drinks or something.
And coming up to that day of Friday the 28th, what if anything sort of changed in reference to those plans?
Well, they were, the forecast was saying a big snowstorm was coming in, and it looked like it was going to be late Friday into all day Saturday. So I had said to my son, well, obviously, doesn't seem like anyone will be able to go out on Saturday night. Why don't you just do something with your friends Friday night?
And had you, at that time, already made some plans with friends and relatives in regards to going out Friday?
Yeah, I had just mentioned to my daughter Caitlin and my sister-in-law Julie, and just had mentioned it to them about possibly getting together Friday.
And just to be clear for the record, when you say your sister-in-law Julie, how is she sort of related to you?
She's my husband's brother, Chris's wife.
And your husband has a number of siblings, correct?
Yes, he's the oldest of 7.
And yourself and Julie Albert, you guys are friends?
Yes, we're very close.
And so, also just one last question, sort of leading up through the course of that week, where did your husband Brian go?
Sort of last minute, I believe it was Thursday of that week, he went to New York for a funeral.
And you know who the funeral was in regard to?
It was for a New York police officer who had just been killed in the line of duty.
And do you recall how he got there as far as how he went from Kansas
I
to New York?
believe he may have flown Thursday to New York, and then the plan was to fly back Saturday, but that changed with the weather, and he ended up, they didn't want to get stuck there. So after the funeral Friday morning, they drove home. A friend of his had driven, so he got a ride back with them on Friday.
And only if you know, but as far as that friend that he drove back with on Friday, do you know who that was?
The friend who I believe had the truck there and drove was Brian Higgins.
Okay. Someone, Mr. Higgins, that you were familiar with prior to that date in January?
Yes, he was a friend of my husband's.
So I love that question. So now a couple of things. So we're starting to see some sensitivity. And how do we know that it's sensitive? Well, she's kind of getting a little stuck on her words. She's reducing commitment. Very beginning, when she was being asked softball questions about, how many siblings her husband has. So now she's asked about Brian Higgins, and she says he was a friend of my husband's, which I think is very interesting. That is an example of leakage, a subtle example, but it's an example. She's telling us the truth. At that time, he was a friend of my husband's. What she doesn't realize entirely is that what she's also implying is that he's not a friend of her husband's now. He was a friend of my husband's back then, right? That's the implication. Now, you want to start to note her body language. You see that she's doing some eye shielding, and you're going to start to see that as we get deeper into the day and into the night, this night, she starts doing these very noteworthy gestures with her mouth. Now, I heard, God, what is his name? I cannot believe I just blanked. Oh my God, I love him. He's so great. He was he is the defense attorney he's been evaluating the sidebars recently. He was around a lot during and right after the first Karen Reed trial. And then he kind of was MIA for a minute. Oh my God. Larry? What is his name? Why am I blanking? I can't believe I'm blanking on your name. I'm so sorry. I think you're amazing and I can't remember your name right now. But he had done very recently an analysis of her sidebar video, which is awesome, definitely. And thank you to the trial channel for everything you do. You're outstanding. You're amazing. I don't know where I'd be in this world without you. And of course, their AI generated analysis of the sidebars is outstanding. But one of the things that he mentioned was this exact like sucking on her cheeks and biting on the inside of her mouth. And he mentioned that this is like a self-soothing behavior. And was an interesting theory. And I would agree with that, except that I know that it's actually it's a reminder. It's like a subconscious reminder not to tell, not to open your mouth, not to tell what you know. And isn't it interesting that we're seeing it right now is when it starts and she's being asked about Brian Higgins. So I have to point that out. That cannot be ignored. And we're going to continue to see now increasing movement away from those initial spontaneous responses. And we're going to get further and further away from answering the question. So you have to pay attention because we all have this tendency to forget the question. It's very, very easy to do. So you have to try to hold the question in your mind. And that's how you know, oh my God, like, wait a minute, what was the question? It's fascinating. So we're not going to watch all this, but I want to play a little bit of it because I really want you to see how this devolves completely. It just falls apart. And it starts out like this very normal testimony, everything you'd expect to see. And then it just goes nose diving off the rails pretty quick. Okay, here we go.
Now, on that evening of the 28th, can you explain to the jury sort of how it was that where did you decide to go with your daughter and your sister-in-law?
We just decided to go to Waterfall, a local place, 5-10 minutes down the road from our house. My sister-in-law, Julie, picked me up at my house, maybe 7:30, 7:45.
Whoa, wait a minute.
And we went to the waterfall, and I believe my daughter and her boyfriend, Tristan, were...
Wait a minute. Okay, remember the question. Where did you decide to go? It's a question that we would expect maybe a sentence response. Like, right? We decided to go to a local place called the Waterfall. But now we're like, wait a minute, what? He didn't ask about who was going, when they were going, who was going to be there, how they were going to get there. None of that was called for. So everything she just added after we decided to go to a local place called the Waterfall was extra information. And think about it. Why interject that if it wasn't asked for? And this is so interesting to me. Well, there's two separate things happening. One, I don't trust the prosecutor to ask me the right questions, and I'm not going to wait around for him to do it. That's number one. Clearly. Because if I believed that Adam Lally was going to ask me this question, the follow-up to this, where did you decide to go? Then I wouldn't need to interject all this extra information. But it also speaks to she is trying to give us information that she wants us to have. Like, so this is rehearsed. She knows that the question is coming about where'd you go that night. And that means she planned, for whatever reason, to tell us this. She planned, when asked, where'd you go that night, to go on this long journey describing to us not where she went, but the whole way that it unfolded, right, on the way to that event. And that wasn't asked. And here's the thing you have to keep in mind. Up till now, she was doing that. So this is a change in how she's testifying. And that's enormous. Because when you're dealing with honest witnesses, you don't see it. It just doesn't happen. They do not interject extra information. They just wait for the question. The next question. So what is she? The question was, right? Where'd you go that night? I don't even know what she's talking about. So what is she talking about? And then you got to think, why is she telling us this? Why is this even important?
My sister-in-law, 5. We just decided to go to Waterfall, a local place, 5-10 minutes down the road from our house. My sister-in-law, Julie, picked me up at my house, maybe 7:30, 7:45. And we went to the waterfall, and I believe my daughter and her boyfriend, Tristan, were already inside at a table.
And when your sister Julie came to pick you up at the house, in addition to...
So you notice a couple other things about this story that she just told us. Notice she's doing some eye shielding. Also note with Nicole, and this gets so interesting. When you think about, look at the way that she is exposing her neck. She's got her eyes closed and she starts exposing her neck and she's got her lips together. So it's a very defensive posture. It's like the implication is like, I don't want to say I'm better than you because I don't think that's exactly right, but it's arrogant. It's like, like the Italians do, meh, like vaffanculo, right? That's what it means. Like that. It's defensive. So now this story that she just told us is a made up story. And we know it's a made up story because multiple eyewitnesses that were in the house before she leaves for the waterfall tell us who is there. But for some reason, unbeknownst to all of us, and I would love to hear your theories on this because this one is baffling. It just baffles me. Like it is so insignificant on paper. To lie about this seems absurd unless it isn't, right? Unless it's not. So Nicole, Brian Albert Jr., and Caitlin all tell us that Caitlin was not at 34 Fairview before they go to the waterfall. They all tell us that Caitlin and Tristan come from their house in Easton and meet everybody, meet Mom and Julie Albert at the waterfall. You'll note the entire time she's telling us that, though, she's reducing commitment. I think, I believe. So we know she doesn't believe what she's saying, but for some reason feels compelled to tell us this story. You'll also note Tristan Morris tells us that he was not with Caitlin, that he meets her at the waterfall. He's very clear about that. Now, what could that be about? Why might they want to lie about that? So think about that. Why lie about whether or not Caitlin Albert is at the house prior to going to the waterfall versus showing up from Easton with her boyfriend and then him leaving her there and then her going back to the house afterwards with her parents? So that is an important question. Put a pin in that. It is, again, for people that have nothing to hide, it's like they just keep making mistake after mistake after. It's so bizarre.
Yourself and your son Brian Jr., who, if anyone else, were one of his friends there at that
I
time?
believe 2 girlfriends may have already had come, and they were just sitting in the kitchen when I left.
And so you go out to the waterfall. When you get to the waterfall, where within the establishment did you go?
We came in, walked in. I believe to the left there was just some small tables, and I think Caitlin and Tristan were already sitting there. So we sat down at the table, and we ordered food, and just hung out for a little bit. Had food and some drinks.
Yeah. What was the question? What was the question there?
And when your sister Julie came to pick you up at the house, in addition to yourself and your son Brian Jr., who, if anyone else, were one of his friends there at that time?
I believe 2 girlfriends may have already had come, and they were just sitting in the kitchen when I left.
And so you go out to the waterfall. When you get to the waterfall, where within the establishment did you go?
We came in, walked in, I believe to the left, there was just some small tables, and I think Caitlin and Tristan were already sitting there. So we sat down at the table and we ordered food and just hung out for a little bit, had food and some drinks.
Right. So it's fascinating because you would think it would be so easy to lie about this. All she had to do was, instead of Tristan already being there and them going to join Tristan, all she had to do was imagine Caitlin is there too. But it's hard to do. And it's so hard to do that she has to keep reducing commitment, adding these filler words, words like so and just and kinda. Now, these so, just, and kinda must be a family thing, because all four of them, Caitlin, Brian Jr., Brian Sr., and Nicole, have problems with these words. Caitlin has the most extreme problem with all of these words because she'll throw them all in one sentence multiple times. Like just so, kinda, like, but so, just, kinda, and it'll be like the same sentence. Hers is more extreme, but you hear it in all of them. It's another way to distance, reduce commitment, and try to ease or soften a lie that they're trying to tell us. And now, again, you see how we're just getting further and further from like straight answers, just question, answer.
And as far as drinks were concerned, do you recall sort of what you were drinking that night?
I was probably drinking White Claw.
God bless you. Now, later on in the evening, was there any sort of live entertainment there?
Yes. After we ate, my daughter's boyfriend Tristan left shortly after because he was.
The question was there any live entertainment there? That's the question. That question warrants a yes or no response. Yes, there was a band. No, not that night. Whatever, right? You'll note that's not what we get here. That isn't even close. We're like so out, like we're on an island somewhere else, on another planet here. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
Was there any sort of live entertainment there?
Yes. After we ate, my daughter's boyfriend Tristan left shortly after because he was going to be going out shoveling, working with a plow guy. So he was planned to go home and just sleep.
Okay. Really important. Listen to the language, and you have to listen very carefully because, like all of us, our instinct is to just take the gist of what she's saying, is to walk away with a high-level picture and not notice the exact verbiage that she's using, but the exact verbiage is absolutely critical. It's how we know that this is just fundamentally deceptive. This is just not the way you would say this if you were, well, first of all, this is not the answer to the question. So she's now telling us something completely extra, totally uncalled for. She wants us to know this. For some reason, to her, this is important. Okay. Why? We don't know. But notice that she's not quite using the language we would expect if this was true. So I'm just going to rewind it a little bit so you can hear the way she's talking about Tristan. Also note her body language.
Was there any sort of live entertainment there?
Yes. After we ate, my daughter's boyfriend Tristan left shortly after because he was going to be going out shoveling, working with a plow guy. So he was planned to go home and just sleep.
He was gonna be, right? He had planned to go home. So these are statements that indicate this was the plan, but that's not what happened. That was what was supposed to happen at that time, but that isn't what actually did happen. Like, he didn't actually go out and plow, but at that time, that's what we thought was going to happen.
Take a nap because he was going to have to get up like in the middle of the night to go out and do that. So he had left. So it was just me, Julie, and Caitlin. And at one point, the waitress had said, "Oh, a band's going to be setting up where you're sitting. Can I move you?" So she just kind of moved us over to like a high top table.
And then after you were moved over to the high top table, who, if anyone else, came in to join your group?
Shortly after, I believe my sister Jennifer and her husband Matt came in, I had texted her just saying I was there if she was interested to come by. I think she said she was somewhere else. Did I want to come there? And I said, well, no, I'm already situated. The band's going to play. I'm just going to stay here. So she said, okay, maybe we'll come there. So maybe 9 as she came in with another couple. I believe they had been at a basketball game, their daughter's basketball game. So she came in with them.
All right. So we just fell off the cliff. And this is an interesting cliff that she's falling off of here. I'm going to slow this response down a little bit and really watch her body language. It's my belief that when she speaks about Jen, there is a sense of guilt, that there is some type of feeling of guilt, maybe shame, like that she has involved her sister. That's the sense. But in order to see that, I'm going to slow it down a little bit. And remember, we were not, this information is totally uncalled for. It is just way more than was required based on the question. She was asked who came in next. That was it. Also, one more thing about this before we watch it again. Remember the law of efficiency. This is vital. So everything humans do, your DNA has one directive that essentially encompasses your survival directive. It is one very clear, like Darwinian directive, but it's threaded through almost every human behavior. And the way I refer to that for ease is the law of efficiency, as in the law of energetic efficiency. Your brain and body is always looking for the most efficient way to do whatever it's going to do. It's the reason why, let's say you move into a new house and within a couple of days, you know where the light switches are without having to go looking for them. Or when you go to open your refrigerator, after like the third time, you don't have to look for the handle. You can just open it without looking and shut it without looking, and you know where the milk is and you can grab the milk without looking. Your brain is always looking to make everything as automatic. Kick it over to the autonomic nervous system as much as possible because it's more efficient that way. Your brain is very expensive. Using a lot of that energy to think about how to tie your shoes or where the light switches are is just unnecessary. So anytime your brain can find a pattern that can make your energy expenditure more efficient, it is going to do that. That is the reason why when you are watching testimony that is honest, you are not going to hear a lot of recounting of conversations. You're not going to hear, well, I said this, and then she said that, and then I said, oh my God, and that's just not efficient. And there's a pressure. Imagine that you have the eyes of the world on you. Not only the eyes of the world, you're testifying in a court of law, in a murder trial, over the death of a police officer. This woman knows. She's been in and around cops for 40 years. God only knows how many cops are in her family. I mean, her extended family. right? Her parents and their siblings and cousins. So she knows the severity of this, and she's wasting time with like needless dialogue that she had with whoever. And she does this over and over and over again. This is a huge indicator of, at the very least, sensitivity, but in my mind, deception. It's like she's using these dialogues as a way to legitimize whatever she's saying. Instead, it's almost like her word isn't good enough. So she has to recount these dialogues that are invented in order to find a way to make them seem more true, more legitimate. And it's a pattern. She does it over and over again. Highly irregular, huge red flag. So keep that in mind. Also, keep that in mind whenever you see it, because it's just like a huge red flag. Because it's not human. It goes against every freaking fiber of your being to do it this way. Unbelievable. We're 7 minutes and 57 seconds into this testimony.
And again, just to be clear, when you say your sister Jen and her husband Matt, what is their last name?
McCabe.
And she's your younger sister, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, as far as
Okay, I want you to see this because I
after
want
they
you to
came
see
in,
her
was
reaction.
anyone else sort of came in and joined your group?
Shortly after that.
And again, just to be clear, when you say your sister Jen,
Hold on. You really want to watch her body. And I'm just going to slow it down just for this part, because at normal speed, it can be very hard to catch. Just 0.9. Okay.
came in to join your group.
All right. So once you're moved to the high top, did anyone else come in to join your group? Is the question. Did anybody else come in to join your group?
Shortly after, I believe my sister Jennifer and her husband Matt came in, I had texted her just saying I was there if she was interested to come by. I think she said she was somewhere else. Did I want to come there? And I said, well, no, I'm already situated. The band's going to play. I'm just going to stay here. So she said, okay, maybe we'll come there. So maybe 9-ish, she came in with another couple. I believe they had been at a basketball game, their daughter's basketball game. So she came in with them.
And again, just to be clear, when you say your sister Jen and her husband Matt, what is their last name?
McCabe.
And she's your younger sister, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, as far as
See that? So there's a couple of very significant big gulps in there. And then when she's asked, this is your younger sister, she kind of holds her head in shame, which makes me think that there's some sense of guilt that I dragged my sister unwittingly, obviously, in the middle of all of this. That if it wasn't for me, she wouldn't have been in the middle of all of this.
After they came in, who, if anyone else, sort of came in and joined your group?
Shortly after that, I believe Julie's husband, Chris, came in. He worked up the street at his pizza shop. So I believe shortly after 9:30, he
Also, be asking why. All she had to say, the last question came in after you were moved to the high top. My sister and her husband, Matt. That was the answer. Period. Did anybody else come in after that? My brother-in-law, Chris. He came from his pizza shop. Period. Why are we getting all of this completely irrelevant for our needs and for the jury's needs? What is the purpose of all of this information?
came down, he came in. And then in the meantime, my husband was, getting close to being back to the area from driving back from New York. So I had texted him and said, hey, me and Katie and whoever else are here, if you want to come by. And he was like, oh, I'm kind of tired. It's been a long day. And I just pushed him a little, oh, well, Katie's here. She, just come. She wants to see you. So he's like, all right, maybe I'll pop in. So I believe after, so it was Jen and Matt and the other couple, and then Chris came in, and then I believe maybe around 10, Brian came in.
Right. So I didn't nitpick. I'm not nitpicking because we'll be here for the rest of our lives if I do right now. However, what is this? I mean, this is all deception. Do you see what I'm saying? Because we've completely diverted from what was the original first 3 minutes where she was asked the very basic questions the exact same way that any normal human in a courtroom setting answers questions. Now we're getting into, we're leading up to how the night unfolds, and she's just all over the place. She can't answer a single question directly. She reduces her commitment to what she's saying multiple times in every sentence. She's interjecting personal details, information, conversations, details of these conversations that are completely, number one, fabricated, but number two, irrelevant. This is information that none of us need. Now, if Adam Lally wants this information from her, guess what? It's his job to ask these questions. It is not her job to anticipate whether he will or won't and have an agenda that she needs to make sure that she says all this stuff about this person and that person. Like, why? Why do we need all this information? Now, I would love to hear why you think we need all this information. I have some ideas. Why do you think we need all this? And we'll take a little time out in just a minute.
And after your husband Brian came in, was there anybody else that came in and joined you?
Shortly after, maybe 10:30, his friend Brian Higgins had come in.
Look at her.
Your
Look
husband
at the way
Brian
she's holding
and
her
Brian
head.
Higgins came in separately about a half hour apart.
I think so, yes.
And following that, who, if anyone else, came into the establishment and sort of joined your group at the hot top table?
A little bit later, I think approximately 11, John walked in with his girlfriend.
And
John walked in with his girlfriend. Karen Reed is seated across from her right now in this very moment. She's here because of the trial of the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. And she just told you that John walked in with his girlfriend. I'm not so sure that the jury at this moment has any idea what she's talking about. Who's John? Who's his girlfriend? Right? She didn't say John O'Keefe. She said John and his girlfriend. Now, I understand why she did do that, but it is a little odd, right? It's a little odd that in this one time that she mentions either of them, she won't even say Karen, John and Karen.
when you say John, who is John?
John O'Keefe.
And how did you, or did you know John O'Keefe prior to that night?
I didn't know him that well. I think I had only met him once, maybe twice through my sister. Brief interaction. I think when he first walked in, actually, I didn't recognize him. I think I said to someone, "Oh, who's that?" Because they were kind of walking towards our table. And they said, "Oh, it's John O'Keefe." I said, "Oh." So they came in and they just kind of went to the end of the table where like my sister Jennifer and Matt and Chris and Julie were, because they knew them. I had never met Karen and I'd only met John once or twice. So they kind of just went to the other end of the table where Jen and Matt were, who they know, and Chris and Julie, who John had been neighbors with for a couple years. So they were all just kind of at that end talking.
Right. So this is, first off, I mean, this screams deception. It's screaming deception. Number one. Number two, this is like distancing. It's like hot potato. Like, I don't know who that is. I don't know them. I don't even know them. I didn't know who they were. She invents a conversation with some mysterious person about, I didn't even recognize him. Like, she's essentially saying, I want no part of this. I want no part of them. I want nothing to do with anything that went on over there then or now. That's what she's doing. She's absolutely trying to remove herself from this equation. And it's kind of funny, actually, to watch. And we will, in just a moment, I will show you, well, you'll see some images that, you know, that definitely conflict with some of what Mrs. Albert is saying here in just a minute.
And probably pretty well understood, but just to be clear, as far as the sister that you knew of John through, that was your sister that was there, Jennifer?
Yes, Jennifer.
And as far as you referenced his girlfriend, had you ever met his girlfriend before that night?
No.
Had you ever, so you had never met Karen Reed prior to that night?
No.
And at any point in time, did you have any interaction, or what, if any, interaction did you have with either Mr. O'Keefe or Ms. Reed?
At one point, John walked by, towards me and my sister, my daughter at the table, and said, "Hey, I'm going up to the bar. Do you guys need a drink or anything?" And we said, "No, thank you." I think he then kind of stopped and spoke with my husband for a minute, probably was asking him the same thing. Then John went back up to the bar, and then he went back down to, where he'd been standing. And that was the only interaction I had with him.
That was it.
And as far as your understanding or your knowledge of Mr. O'Keefe, did you know what he did for a living?
Yes.
And what did he do?
I knew he was a Boston policeman.
Mm.
And was he somebody, if you know, that works with you?
That's regression, right? Like, this is a woman who's been married to a Boston cop. Like, she's been dating him since they were like in the 8th grade. That's how long she's been romantically interested in Brian Albert Sr. Like, imagine 8th grade. Think back to whenever that was for you. And imagine that you're still hanging out with that person that you were interested in then. That's your husband who you have 5 children with. That's the guy, right? Okay. So just think like Nicole Albert, put yourself in her mind. And then I'm going to play this again.
As far as your understanding or your knowledge of Mr. O'Keefe, did you know what he did for a living?
Yes.
And what did he do?
I knew he was a Boston policeman.
He was a Boston policeman. Is that what she says? Policeman? It's like she conflates men and man, but it's like the same way that like a little kid would say it, right? I knew he was a Boston cop. I knew he was on the job. I knew he was on the Boston police force. But the way she says it, she can barely get the words out. And she says it like a child, which is extraordinarily bizarre. Unless it's not, unless you're carrying tremendous guilt over the fact that he died in your house. I don't know. That's just a thought.
And was he somebody, if you know, that worked with your husband?
No, I don't believe he ever worked with my husband. I don't believe they ever crossed paths at work. I think they were in different areas of, the job.
Right. So now it's the job, right? Now I'm using like inside slang to talk about being a Boston cop. But seconds ago, I could barely say policeman.
Fair to say Boston Police Department is a relatively large department, correct?
Yeah, it's like 3,000.
Now, with reference to Miss Reed, what, if any, interaction did you have with her that night?
I had none. I don't believe we spoke or we were introduced or anything. I don't think we spoke at all.
Now, Turning back to Mr. O'Keefe just for a sec, if you recall, what, if anything, do you recall him to be wearing as far as clothing was concerned during your interaction?
I believe he had a hat on, some sort of just sweatshirt, jeans, and sneakers.
At any point in time that you saw him or while he was talking to you, did you see any sort of like winter jacket or big coat or anything like that?
No.
And as far as his clothing was concerned, did you observe it to have any sort of tears in it or any dishevelment, anything like that?
No.
And as far as his face was concerned or any sort of outward part of his body, did you observe, or what, if anything, did you observe with regard to injuries on him or anything like that?
Nothing. Nothing like that.
Now, as far as your home
So
was
I want you to
concerned,
notice her here. So for the next couple of minutes, and we're going to stop this, and I want to hear from you guys. So for the next couple of minutes, literally 2 minutes, watch her face. I don't know who she's looking at. I don't know if it's Karen Reed. I don't know if it's the defense team, but she's looking at somebody, and she starts glaring in the most evil-eyed way. So pay attention here to kind of where she's looking and faces that she's making. It's interesting.
Nothing. Nothing like that.
Now, as far as your home was
See that?
concerned, was that somewhere that either Mr. O'Keefe or Ms. Reed had ever been to before?
No.
And over the course of the evening, what, if any, discussion was there that you heard or were a part of in regard to sort of what was going to do or where to go after leaving the waterfall?
Well, after the band wrapped up, I was getting ready to leave, and I just kind of leaned over to my sister Jennifer and said, "Hey, you know, Brian Jr.'s at the house. I think he just has 2 friends there. He's going to be turning 23 at midnight. If on your way home you wanted to swing by and say happy birthday, you know, if you want to do that, come by and do that." And she was like, "Okay, you know." And then I was just kind of gathering up my stuff, and I got ready to leave. It may have been mentioned at the table, but I had no idea, you know, if anyone else was interested in doing that or wanted to do it. I had just said it to my sister.
Okay. So this is another distancing moment, and obviously deceptive, just as deceptive. Hopefully I don't need to keep saying that because it's so completely and totally obvious that this is not true. But we also have video evidence that this isn't true as well. So this is one of those moments where we get to confirm that what we're seeing is actually deception. So let me play this just a little bit longer to see if I can capture the next time she makes the face. And if not, we'll pause it because I want to show you that what she just said, I only mentioned it to my sister. She invents a conversation with Jennifer. She had no idea that anybody else was coming to the house. No interest in anybody else coming to the house.
And if anybody else had wanted to join or come along, would that have been an issue?
Oh, no, I would have no problem if anyone sitting with us had come.
But as far as you knew, you just communicated that to your sister Jennifer, and whatever happened after that happened.
Yes.
And when you say sort of the band was wrapping up and the bar sort of winding down, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, about what time was that?
Like 12:45.
And about what time was it, if you
see it?
If you know, about what time was it that you left the bar?
There it is again.
A little before.
That was the second one. So that was the second evil eye. And what does it tell you? If you are Nicole Albert, what does it tell you about Nicole Albert if she is actually sitting on the witness stand and making evil eyes towards Karen Reed? Like what does that, because what that says to me is, yes, I, Nicole Albert, take no responsibility for the situation that I have found myself and my family in, that it's all somehow Karen Reed's fault that we're in this situation. Because what? she should have just rolled over and taken it up the you know what? That's what she should have done, Nicole? You're going to blame her? I mean, talk about lacking self-awareness. To me, it's first of all, it's tasteless, number one. It's just tacky. This is a courtroom. But you have so much contempt for Karen Read that you have to send these glaring, angry faces at her. It's just unbelievable. It really, really is. Okay. Now I want to show you one more thing, and then we're going to go to the comments. So I want to show you some clips from the waterfall and see, is this story that we're getting from Nicole Albert about how she just whispered to her sister about, oh, we're going to go celebrate with Brian Jr. at midnight if you want to come. Let's see. Is that true? Let's find out if that is true. Okay. Let me see if I can find. I have so many videos for some reason, queued up tonight. I think this one. Yeah, here it is. Perfect. For some reason, this really helped me to see Nicole in a slightly different light. And I'm working a video on Nicole, so don't worry if all of this is kind of flying over your head. You'll get another opportunity to hear with more detail, probably, from her. Let me show you this here now. Okay, here we go.
From the waterfall back to your house on Thursday.
My husband drove the three of us back.
All right. So we're going to jump to the waterfall video when they are leaving. So this is, I believe, 2 minutes to midnight, 11:58 approximately. We'll be able to see it in a moment. Now, of course, we have all seen this video many, many times because this is the moment when Brian Higgins is pointing in the direction of John O'Keefe and, trying to get him to walk out, right? Leave with him. But one of the things that you want to notice Nicole, she's in the flannel, and notice Brian Albert. And don't worry, I'm going to give you a better view in just a minute. But you might notice that they too are pointing in the direction of John and motioning for him to go with them. And that is, Nicole and Brian. It's both of them. See, there she is. Come on. Come on, guys. Okay. Interesting. So that's a little different, right, than what we just heard? Okay, so here they are again. This is a wide shot. Nicole again is in the flannel. Brian Albert's right behind her. Caitlin is in front of her in the white. Chris is about to grab Brian Higgins. But keep an eye on Nicole. And by the way, this clip came from trial 1. You can't even make this up. Adam Lally is showing this to Brian Albert during the trial. It's like, wait a minute. Adam Lally used this moment when Brian Higgins is motioning to John O'Keefe, and none of us saw it. It's crazy. Because of this big timestamp, you didn't even notice who he was looking at. It's crazy. I'm try to fast forward through this. Here we go. So there they are. Oh,
it could be me.
I must have cut the wrong part out because there is a clip where you can see them clearly motioning. All right. One more little detail I want you to have, because I think this is important as we continue to get to know Nicole better. This is them walking out, leaving the waterfall. Okay, so here they are leaving. This is cross-examination that this comes up.
It could be me. I'm not sure. I can't really tell.
Did you
you recognize the woman that just sort of walked forward?
Yes. Now seeing the coat, I recognize that it's me.
Thank you. And did you see what was in your hand when you walked by?
I don't. Yes.
What is that?
Looks like a can.
And what time is that video taken?
11:58.
So that would have been approximately the time that you were leaving the Waterfall Bar and Grill.
Yep.
And
All right. So now, why does that matter? Why does it matter that Nicole Albert is leaving with a beer or White Claw, whatever she's drinking, a can in her hand? We know that this is a relatively standard practice in Canton. Like, clearly, John is walking around with a glass. Karen leaves one bar and goes to the other with a glass. Nicole is walking out with a can after closing, right? Closing down the bar. But remember what we're led to believe about Nicole once she gets home, right? We're led to believe that, oh, mom came home and mom just starts doing the mom thing where she jumps into cleaning mode, right? That's what we're being led to believe. Mom just, and everybody says it, despite the fact, though, that there's literally 20 minutes. Brian Albert Jr. reports that as soon as mom walks in the door at 12:05, she goes into the kitchen and she starts cleaning. And she's telling us, oh, I'm cleaning the bathroom, whatever. And this is like, she's doing the thing she does. Everybody makes this huge thing about it, huge deal. Jennifer McCabe tells us that's what her sister's doing. So 12:20, Jen shows up and she's still cleaning. The only problem with that is I can't remember in this moment if it's Sarah Levinson or Julie Nagel. I think it might be Sarah Levinson, who tells us that's not quite true, that Nicole is wherever they are, sitting and drinking. Right? So Nicole is not cleaning, right? I think it's pretty safe to say we all can assess, we can probably assume that, right? Anything that they all say, like that is so clearly rehearsed, is so obviously not true. But I just want to make it clear so that if you should go back and watch this on your own, or even see one of the follow-up videos that I do on Nicole, you understand that is not entirely true, or maybe not even at all true. So keep it in mind. Because the picture we're being led to believe, oh, she's just a normal mom, just like the rest of, we're just normal moms, right? Not quite. It's not quite normal, is it? So, what do you guys think? Let's turn to you guys. I want to hear what you think of all of this. It's, first of all, insane. And Grateful Dead fan 88 sends $5. What's up, Sam? Thank you for everything you do. I hope these disgusting human beings are caught. Jen and Brian Albert are disgusting. I agree with you about Colin 100%. Stay true. I'm going to try. Thank you so much for your support. I'll tell you, these guys make me nuts. It makes me nuts. It really pains me, physically pains me to watch it, because it's like, how is this okay? How are they getting away with it? How is this happening, right? At Mackenzie 9498 sends $9.99. Sam, listen to Nicole mention the rest of her kids at the beginning. Colin definitely went to Fairview that night to see one of the younger sons. Nothing else makes sense for why he was there. That's an interesting theory. I've never heard that any of the other younger ones were there. It doesn't mean they weren't. I just know that the youngest one comes home from the Marines, I think 10 days later, because there is actually a party, believe it or not, I don't know how. There is actually that they do throw, I believe his name is Jack. I think he's one of the twins. He's the one I think is in the Marines. He comes back 10 days after this. That's the images that we get of Colin with his aunt, without the can't remember if it's with or without the knuckles right now. I think it's without. I think his knuckles are at least clean in that image. The only other question I have, Mackenzie, about this, and I think there's a few people like Sherry D, those that were really involved and on top of this case from day one, and maybe even Turtle Boy knows more about this than certainly I do. These 3 girls, or 4 girls, I'm sorry, there's 4 of them. The ones that are alleged to be there for the earlier part of the night with Brian Jr., their names are, oh my God, why am I blanking on who they are? I'm completely just blanking on their names. You know who I'm talking about. Oh my God, Emily Fabiano, Mary Kent, and the 2 others. That group, those girls, are they friends with Colin? I have heard that they are. I have also heard that was somehow inadvertently how Yannetti got the call originally saying that Colin and Brian Albert were involved. That the Scanlon phone call comes from one of these 4 girls. Now, I don't know that, but that is something to look at. Those 4 initial girls that are there allegedly during the earlier part of the night, are they somehow connected to Colin? Some people have said yes, that they do have direct ties to him. So that would be a question. The only other possibility is there is another son, and no, there's not. That's it, right? So let me just think about this. There's Caitlin, then there's Brian Jr. Yeah, there's another son. That's right. The 3rd in line is also, could be that 3rd one, possibly. Could very well be. I'll listen to that again to see, just to try to register more about who that 3rd one is. Thank you for that. Definitely. Ginny Exena Kiss. Ginny, how do I not know how to say this? Ginny Exena Kiss, 28 cents, $5. If she didn't think anyone was coming back to the house, why was she cleaning, right? That's a good point. That's like another just silly oversight, right? Why clean if it's, you're just you guys? Yeah. Was she maybe putting pizza boxes away? Sure. But the way that they rehearse this, and they all rehearse it, and I will tell you that I am working on a definite deception tag. I'm not 100% on it yet, so I'm not going to tell the world yet, but I'm starting to think that just like Juliana Nagel has a very clear deception tag where she does the yep, that's right, yep. So does Nicole. And if that is the case, I have to go back and make sure that it is what I think it is. But if that's true, it shows up big time when she's talking about cleaning. Big time. Big time, big time. K Bella 25 cents, $1.99. I think NA is projecting because she hates her. Well, it's a great point. I mean, I'm sure that's true to some degree, right? Projecting on Karen. Yeah, I mean, certainly she has had to deal with stuff that, thank God, I don't, right? I mean, whether John O'Keefe ever loses his life or not, I'm sure Brian Albert can be a huge, enormous monster asshole, particularly when he's drinking. And she does a tremendous job recovering for him. It's like her whole thing, right? Now, I had heard during the wedding of Caitlyn that they had been separated, but that was the last I heard of it. I have no knowledge of whether or not that's true or was temporary, was permanent. Who knows? Would it surprise anybody would it surprise anyone at all if that were the case? Of course not. they've been together a very long time. But it strikes me, it's like, this woman, I don't know. Yeah. I think we all see it, right? I mean, we all see that she obviously has tremendous self-esteem issues, just tremendous self-esteem issues. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Sheba Biba, 1971. Listen to Sarah's second trial. She always walks inside door, but they made her walk out the front door when they left. Absolutely. Yep. Yes. She talks about her shoes. Why would you go out the front door with more steps? Yeah. I mean, and listen, it's crazy. So me and Emily C were talking about this today. If you actually go back and you listen to everybody and you realize that they go to such extreme lengths to avoid the family room over and over and over, everybody goes to these extreme lengths to find a way to not be coming out or in to that family room, which is crazy because earlier, in testimony, Nicole tells us that everybody uses that door, right? Now, all of a sudden, the whole house is using the foyer. So it's really funny. It's so silly. And she gets tired. That's funny. Dolly Madison. Yes, she needed a little bit of lipstick and blush. I think towards the end, once cross-examination comes, she's spent. And you can see, yeah, of course she's spent. Like I said, she's expending her energy unwisely throughout this entire thing. I mean, she is just, right, overdoing it, overselling it, trying to be personable. We see exactly the same stuff from Brian Jr. and from Caitlin, except Brian Jr. the entire time is can't sit still. I mean, he's touching his face, he's bouncing his leg. He's literally moving every second of the entire testimony. It's insane. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And McCabe pretends like she never saw. I know. Right. That's a good point. Jen pretends like she's never seen that garage door, but it's not. It's an important point because, right? Where's the garage? Well, the garage door is right next to that family room door, right next to it. And let's take a look. And I saw people in the chat saying this, but that family room, a couple of things that I want you to look at this picture. Suzette VI sends $4.99. The disdain. I know. The disdain. Julie Albert, is that who we're talking about? Shows is due to Jen getting Julie Albert. No, yes. The disdain, Julie Albert. Wait. The disdain, Julie, JA shows is due to Jen getting JA involved, not that JA is upset that she got Jen involved. I'm not sure. Are you mean Nicole? I'm not sure what you mean by JA. Are you talking about Julie? Disdain Julie? Because I don't know that Julie never displays disdain. Hers is fear. Julie Albert has one emotion. It's fear, anxiety, and not. It's it. There's one setting on Julie. Julie is all anxious. It's very funny. Well, see, that's the thing, Suzette, and I hear you, and I think you're talking about Nicole. The only thing is, I wonder about that because the more that I look at Nicole, I'm telling you, the more I look at her, because I think I might have agreed with that until the last 24 hours where I started paying very, very obtusely, silly, close attention to Nicole. Nicole is she's trying to distance herself from all of this, but I think she's more directly involved, because remember, who's the only other person that places herself with Brian Higgins and Brian Albert throughout the course of this night? There's only one other person that is directly placed by all three of them next to those two men. So Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, they removed themselves from the rest of the group. We don't know why. Right? Sometimes they're upstairs in the son's room, other times they're in the family room. Wherever they are, Nicole is there too, which makes me think Nicole has some involvement in this. Maybe she's cleaning up after them? Who the hell knows? But it makes me think that she might have a bigger role in the initial incident. Now, Jen is much more involved after the fact, right? She gets involved. Jennifer is like Brian Albert's minion because I think Jen's skill set is people. She's like I don't want to say a player, but she's a people person, right? She's like the class parent. She's the basketball coach. She's the one that's rallying the parents to go to the bar before and after basketball games. So she's like like a social butterfly, one of these people who are extroverted where they get energy from other people. And you see it, how she so seamlessly brainwashes Carrie Roberts, how she's so seamlessly has done that Carrie Roberts literally perjures herself multiple times, particularly in the second trial. I've caught her at least 3 times. Now, I'm not talking about the one we all know about because Alan Jackson calls her out, just even in passing, right? And then she says things like, well, Jen, we were making the timeline and Jen was like, oh my God, do you remember when I did that? And she's like, no. You're like, the rest of us can see what's happening in that, but she can't because that's her friend. So I think Jen was so important to people after this night, but during this night, I don't know what the hell Nicole Albert is doing, but it's something that, I don't think it's good. Whatever it is, I don't think it's good. Now, obviously, she didn't murder John O'Keefe, but I don't think it's good. Now, there is a rumor. Oh my God, I can't believe how late it is. So there is a rumor going around, and somebody asked me, so I want to make sure I address it. There's a rumor going around that maybe what happened is Chloe jumps on John and he falls and hits his head on the fireplace, right? Could that be what happened here? Here are my reasons why the answer to that is definitively no. Number one, John O'Keefe has defensive wounds. He does not have bruises anywhere from the neck to the knee, but he does have pretty distinct bruises on the back of both of his hands. One, I think on the right hand is more distinct than the one on the left. I think one is more distinct than the other, and I don't remember off the top of my head which is which. He also has a cut above the eyebrow, a cut on the side of the nose where there's glass. So I don't know how that would happen. How could you possibly get glass in your nose from the dog jumping up on you? Unlikely. I think it's far more likely that the dog was responding to aggression, that the dog was inserted herself because some kind of altercation broke out. And that was, right, like the after effect, because, and the other reason, not only because of the injuries, but also because, think about it, like if it was purely Chloe, if the only thing that happens, if John walks in and everyone's like, John, and then the dog jumps on him, I very seriously doubt that anyone's going to be cool with covering that up. Like that's a 911 call, because at the end of the day, everyone saw it, right? The entire house just witnessed nobody doing anything wrong, but the dog jumps on John and he hits his head. I mean, nobody's going to go to prison for that, right? Like Brian Albert's a police officer. Maybe a normal person might get some kind of a charge because it's their dog, but is Brian Albert really going to get a charge? I don't think so. So that's the reason why I don't think it's possible that this is Chloe. I see that out there. I get it, but the injuries in combination with the behavior says to me it doesn't make sense. It's so freaking risky. Like, think about it. If you're Brian Albert, you're gonna risk covering up a murder. You've got, your son is in the house, his friends are in the house. You have no control over those people. Like, you could be reasonably sure Julie Nagel was gonna cover for you, but you don't know Sarah Levinson, right? I mean, I just think that whatever happened, it had to have been like so incriminating for somebody personally or who they care about that they were going to do anything to protect. And while Brian Higgins may have felt that way about himself, I just don't, you're going to like hijack your entire family to save Brian Higgins? Like, really? I don't know. That's tough for me. Like, I know some people believe that. I just don't. I just don't believe that. Yeah, I mean, that's what I see too, Kathy Shields. Yeah, I see it too. I see it too. I just don't think that Chloe was the only person, animal, aggressor responsible. I just don't. I wish I did. I mean, there's been times where I've been able to kind of like get myself close, but at the end of the day, it doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. Also, did I show you guys? I think I did last week. Some of you have seen that image with the logs that I put up because YouTube hates images of hates the image of John's arm. It'll hide this video from forever if I show it by itself. But if you look back at that video, and let me see if I can find it. If it's right here, I'll pull it up. If it takes more than a couple of minutes, there's no way I will. But I had it really close for last time. Yeah, it's not here because my hard drive disconnected. I'll try to show it in the next video, or maybe I'll post it even for you guys. There's an image that I made where somebody took like the jaw of a German Shepherd and you can see like its teeth exposed. And if you turn John's arm upside down, it almost perfectly maps on to the teeth of this dog. I mean, it's like perfect. It's just, you can almost see exactly where the dog would have clamped down and then would have had its like nails. Like the nails could have been the scratches on the side, and right around the elbow is like where the jaw could have been. Now, that's speculative, obviously, but you really can see it if you look at you turn everything a certain way. It's like, oh my God, it's that, it's so obviously from a dog. And I will tell you this too. One of the things that really sold me on that being from a dog was there are medical journals where you can see one journal, one article, one person, as far as I know in the world, was murdered by a pack of wild dogs. And it's in the medical journals. And there's all these images and you can see what it looks like. And it looks like BB gun holes. That's what it looks like. It's like a perfect BB gun hole in the skin. And guess what we see on John O'Keefe's arms? Exactly the same thing. So it's hard to say that that's not from the same thing. It's once you see so clearly what it looks like when it is definitively from a dog bite, and then you look at it on John and you're like, it had to have been. What else could have made these perfect little holes? It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Yeah, Robin Rowe. Yes. So anyone attacked by a dog will tell you they are. And also, by the way, if you've had a dog that was attacked by a dog, because my fiance his dog was attacked by a dog. And I think I mentioned this. I thought it was a BB gun that shot him. That's what I thought, because it was a little bloody, but it was a perfect hole. And I was like, what is that? It was one perfect little hole. it's like, God, looks like she got shot with a BB gun, but it was a dog tooth. It's like one of the incisors, I don't know, but it's like a tooth got her and it sunk inside her neck. She had to get shots and everything, and she was fine, but you can really see it. It's wild. I think, wait a minute. I see people. Here we go. You guys want to see Sunny? I see Denise saying, here's Sunny. There's Sunny. Say hi, everybody. There's Sunny. This is my 5-pound Chihuahua. She actually looks bigger on the screen than she is in real life. Say hi, Danny. Hi. I know. She's very loud. I love this dog dearly. You know, I do. But she's like the most challenging 5 pounds could be. So it's extraordinarily misleading because she's only 5 pounds. She's loud as could be. She barks at everything. She definitely has some kind of a Napoleon complex, 100%. She's incredibly needy, so attached, and she does not like almost anyone that comes near me. She's like ready to destroy them. So I love her dearly, and she's super cute, and she is a Chihuahua. She's an apple head, long hair. That's why she looks a little different than other Chihuahuas if you've seen them. But that's Sunny. My very loud 5-pound, enormous pain in the tush. That's Sunny. So, all right, let me make sure I got everybody's questions in before we go. I can't believe we've been here for all this time. You guys, it's crazy. Oh my God. All right, push the like button because we're like 4 hours strong now. Holy crap. It's crazy. Crazy. Looney Tick sends $9.99. Love the name. Thank you for the super sticker, Looney Tick. I so appreciate your support. Holy crap, you guys. We didn't even get to everything, I have to tell you. We didn't even get to everything. But there's always so much. There's always so much. I'm also going to try to take a much closer, much more in-depth look at the ransom note that we did take a look at earlier, because I think there's probably very intentional and important stuff in there. But I need some time with that because of the level of intensity. It's super intense. So hopefully our thoughts and prayers will go out to the Guthrie family, and hopefully Nancy will make it home, right? Hopefully she makes it home. These poor freaking people, man, unbelievable. But we'll be watching and be on the lookout for lots more on this night, this topic, these people, because like I said, they hold the key. They know what happened. That's it. They're the only ones that can tell us what the hell really happened that night. And we can bring in all this outside information, but at the end of the day, we have to go through these people to get answers. So don't you worry. I am going to get to every single one of them in time, one by one. And eventually we will make our way back to Miss Jennifer McCabe. It's so exhausting to even think about, but we're going to save that one for last just because, oh my God, she is so tough, right? And there's 2 trials of that for many days. So that's like a year-long project, Jen, just by herself. You guys, thank you so much for your time, your effort, your attention. Don't forget to hit the like button, and I will hopefully see you back here Monday at noon for my noon show with Loophole Lawyer. Everybody enjoy the rest of your early Thursday morning, and I hope to see you again very soon.
It is the defense counselor's duty to protect the rights of the individual, as it is the prosecution's duty to uphold and defend the laws of the state. Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.